All right. Hey everyone, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Tonight is going to be so exciting. Welcome to the Angry Black Men's Book Club, May 1st, 2025. Um, Tonight we're going to do things slightly differently because I want to talk about a cross between racism, uh, anti-black hatred, um, all of this together. I need all my moderators. Anybody has any questions, I will put my email up. People don't ask me stupid stuff. Stupid stuff is like when you show the book, discuss the book, give the fucking person's name who wrote the book and the title, and you're still asking. Please don't do that. It's stupid. It's stupid. Okay. So please don't do that. All questions can be directed to my email. We don't have time for one-on-one. You should have gotten your education in school. Should be educating yourself. So I'll keep my email up. People have all questions, they can write me, but we don't have time for a lot of foolishness. A lot of times you do this stuff and people just want to, like, I don't know, be seen or something. You know, I know I'm smart, but it doesn't mean I need to be seen or heard. It's not that important. So we're trying to get a task done. I have a very steep assignment tonight, and I'm going to be going through a huge amount of literature. I'm going to try to go through everything. I'm not going to read in detail. Uh, uh, I have this just a bunch of things I want to share with you, and I'm going to try to get this stuff before you tonight, and I want to get into Nazis and religious racism because it's a real problem. It's threatening us as a people directly, and uh, I've always been disturbed by it. But I mean, I knew it was all around, but my God, it was worse than what. And people think I'm cynical. A lot of times you talk about stuff, often things are 100 times worse than what you even imagine them. And that's the situation that we face. And I may introduce a black person or two, but for the most part, this is white people night. Can you say white people? Hold on, let me get my friend. My friend. He's my friend. Okay, can you say white people? Okay. And this is like the coolest, smartest, most lovingest, kindest of all times. Okay. And so, and again, oh, hey, how you doing? Somebody said white people, yes. And let me just start this off. The Angry Black Men's Book Club does not promote or believe that they're separate races. I don't believe that there's any inferior or superior people. I'm not purporting that. I believe in what the Bible teaches, that everybody comes from a common ancestor. And so when I talk about, in fact, anyone that follows me, I, I, I keep it 100, or I give it a buck, no matter what you look like, no matter where you're from. Okay. I'm toughest on my own people because I love my own people best. And so, but when it comes time, I got to talk about white folk. We're going to do it right. We're going to tell the truth about it. And I don't care who doesn't like it. And if your feelings are hurt, too bad. Imagine being hated for centuries and all kinds of bad stuff happening to you. I was late getting to this because I was talking to a cousin. They're trying to find out ancestors and all this other stuff. People's families still busted up 200 years later after slavery or whatever. So, If folks have a problem, too bad. And I mean, I really like white Jesus. And since black folks won't serve a black one, I brought the white one back because I want us to love our neighbors and not to steal, kill, and destroy. And to love God. Since you won't love one another, since you got to kill babies, since you've got to change your sex if you really think you could, let's just bring a good manager back. Let's make this dude CFO, CEO, COO, whatever he has to be to get we black folks to stop being so bad to each other. So we gave Black Jesus a chance. Yeah, I didn't want to follow him because we don't respect each other. So I'm bringing somebody back that we can all rally behind. We had a civil rights movement when God looked like this. We had black people's literacy level going up. We were aspiring for things when Jesus was white. But the minute he got black, y'all started slumming. So I say white Jesus, not so much because the skin color doesn't matter, but then again, it matters to us. Nobody wants a pink dollar except for during Pride Month. A dollar's green. Um, Maybe Jesus didn't look like this, but if y'all want to be Pan Africanists, the Pan Africanists think Jesus looks like this. Pan Africanists think this is Jesus. If you don't like it, Black Americans, you're not fitting in with your ancestors. The Africans and the Caribbeans that really know their Jesus looks like this. This is the Jesus of Africa. You've seen the big basilica and Yamoussoukro and Ivory Coast. Jesus looks like this, not a black one. They wouldn't have built anything that big for a black man. So, if having a white Jesus brings out the best in us, then let's have a white Jesus. Not because I care about skin color, but you do. People buying skin whitening cream and all this other stuff. Well, you know what? This one don't need skin whitening cream. He's already white. So you can take him pre-made, prefabricated God that you can serve. Love your neighbors, love one another. Stop hating yourself. And if everything white people do is right and God made you black, then you can be proud of it. Don't you agree, white Jesus? He nodded. Yeah, see, he's my best friend. You need a white Jesus in your house. In fact, if y'all have any white Jesuses, when I get my post office box, if you don't want them, you can send me all your white Jesuses because I need them every hour. Now that I did my religious promo, and I haven't done this in a long time, MFM, 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 MFM. All right. Lord, Jesus, help me. Oh, there's so much to do tonight, God. My people are so goddamn ignorant. I can't even get to everything to try to put out forest fires for self-hating black people. The theme tonight is the Anglo-Nazi, or should it be the Anglo-American Nazi anti-black conspiracy. And there is one. So all the police murders, I've got 3 books on them killing black Americans. Well, these are 2 of the same. I'll share these a little bit later. It's all interconnected. Medical apartheid, all of that. In fact, I put Kelly Miller's thing aside. I should bring that out because one of the precursors to Nazism in America, who wanted to wipe out all black people, oh yes he did. Oh, it's right here. I was reading from Kelly Miller, and he may be the one of maybe 2 black authors tonight. White writers matter. White authors matter. Okay, so I've offended you. Get off my platform. I read everybody's literature, black, white, polka dot. I mean, if a Martian had a good book that could explain something, I'd read it too. Okay, so this is the Anglo-American Nazi anti-black conspiracy. And the outcome of it is our elimination. And this has been going on for a very, 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 very long time. And I'm going to be pulling on different sources because the way that the media represents Nazism. In fact, Nazism ain't just for Jews anymore. Like they said, orange juice isn't just for breakfast anymore. Nazism isn't and never was just for Jews. That is a lie. That's them hogging the limelight, hogging public sympathy, hogging all this stuff. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I'm trying to think. Let's see if I can find this thing because I had the book. It's in here. It's in here. But if I don't see it here, uh, then I'm going to skip Kelly Miller because he has this thing talking about Hoffman. And I think his name is Ludwig Hoffman. And Ludwig Hoffman was a German man who came to America to explain to white people that black people were so dirty, so nasty, so degenerate that there was nothing that could be done to elevate or make us better people. And the best way to get rid of black folks is to deny us medical care. The best way to deal with black folks is to let them die off due to natural causes so you don't have to kill them. Just don't help them. Let black people die. Well, I think I have the book here. My God. That's why I buy books, and I thank all of the people like Sister Star that donate, uh, and enable me to share and do research. Shout out to you, Sister Star, because people have no idea. You cannot. I was looking at some books. I had to spend money on books today. I saw copies of Segregation and Your Child by Kenneth Clark. It's like a $200 book, $300 book, $400 book. And I got it for 10. I just says, damn it, spend it, buy that shit. I got some Charles S. Johnson books, for some of them hardback, In the Shadow of the Plantation. And so when I taught to you, a lot of people, like the little bastard last night that asked if I had a PhD, I don't even, I don't even try to do that to like talk about educational stuff. I've learned more from Steve Copeland. I don't know if he even finished school. So I'm not caught up in degrees or pedigrees. If you're speaking the truth, if you're informing people, if you're getting people to understand or learn something, I want to hear what you have to say and integrate it into my life and into my thought so I can be the kind of person that understands. There are a lot of people. Frederick Douglass never went to school. Mm. Frederick Frederick Douglass never went to school. Mm. Harriet Tubman never went to school. Um, there are a whole bunch of people that we look up to. Nat Turner never went to school. There are a whole lot of folks that didn't have degrees that got a hell of a lot of stuff done for us. So I don't worship education and degrees. And I'll tell you, the main thing I got from being in school was debt. A lot of the stuff I've learned on my own, learned from people like Steve Coakley, or learned from Dick Gregory, or learned from other people, Darren Muhammad, different people out here, even Irritated Junior. There are different people that teach you things, may not even have the degrees, may not have all that stuff. So, I'm not, I don't answer questions. So please don't call and ask where I went to school. If it comes up, I'll tell you, not because I'm tripping, but because it's a fact. I'm a truth teller. That's to keep my nose from acting crazy tonight. I've been tired of this stuff dripping like a faucet. So let me just go over some stuff because certain people um, are familiar with Harriet Washington's book, Medical Apartheid. Medical Apartheid is a phenomenal work, phenomenal Black woman writer. There's another phenomenal Black woman writer. I'm going to put her name up. That's on the StreamYard feed. Her name is, and I'm going to put Doctor in. I want to bring up her name. And I'm going to put it in here. And moderators, you can share. But her name is Dr. I'm going to put in her book, The Second Amendment. No, Eyes Off the Prize. My book that I like by her is Eyes Off the Prize. I'm going to put her name up. So there's this phenomenal woman, one of the most brilliant Black women in America. Is Dr. Carol Anderson of Emory University in Atlanta. Her book, Eyes Off the Prize, White Rage. She has a whole bunch of books. She's one of the greatest, most brilliant Black women, or any scholar of any kind in our history. She's living right now. Don't have to wait for her to die. Buy her books, Carol Anderson. Eyes Off the Prize, White Rage. Look her up. If anybody, moderators, if you can find something on Carol Anderson, share it in the spaces. She is one of the best contemporary scholars, analysts, bar none, in the world that has ever been. So if folks want to understand, so this notion that I don't respect or like women, where did Randy Short get some of this stuff from? Randy Short got this from Carol Anderson. I don't have any problem saying a Black woman schooled my ass and schooled me real good. I love Carol Anderson. You should too. I'm probably at some point going to read some of her works. Again, Carol Anderson of Emory University. Eyes Off the Prize, White Rage. She's just awesome. You will never find a better scholar who's honest and keeping it real. I don't know how she's managed to stay employed. They don't allow people to be that honest. She is incredible. There's nobody. She's just a real solid Black woman scholar. There are others, but she's my favorite. And she tells white folk the truth. Now, this other, again, Harriet A. Washington. I don't have Carol's books in front of me. Medical apartheid. I've been hearing about it. This book talks about how they kill and destroy us, and there is a link. There is a link to medical apartheid, and this very crusty. You can get this book. It's expensive. Doesn't look all that, but it's by Frederick Ludwig Hoffman. Yeah, she has a book called Second Amendment. Yeah, I didn't want to botch the title. I didn't want to botch the title out of respect. So sometimes I don't say stuff. I don't want to guess. And certain people think I don't know what I'm talking about. So the brother that's in Ohio, thank you. She has a book talking about guns and how they've written the laws against Black people being able to protect themselves. This is why this Carmelo thing is such an issue. We don't have a right to self-defense. And Carol Anderson shows the history as to why. She talks about white rage. She talks about how Black people are literally, and that's what we're going to talk about, William Patterson. Another person that you need to learn about. I don't want anybody to join the Communist Party, but this man here, William L. Patterson, this is his biography. I'm going to be reading from his book tonight. From another book. He was the one that tried to take the Black situation to the United Nations, comparing Nazi Germany and what they did to Jews to what had been happening to Blacks in America. He was with Paul Robeson and other people. They got betrayed by the NAACP. Carol Anderson talks a little bit about it in Eyes Off the Prize. He was a communist, but he was on point. He was on point. Your political persuasion doesn't mean that you don't get your analysis right. William L. Patterson, this is where Malcolm X and them got the idea to go to the UN. It's this man. And these books are inexpensive. The Man Who Cried Genocide, an autobiography of William L. Patterson. There's another book I have. I'm going to pull it out. I'll be reading from it in a second. Then this book by Ludwig Frederick Hoffman. Here it is. You can find this on Amazon, or if you got some good Black bookstores. Frederick Ludwig Hoffman. I'm going to write up this thing and put it. Please don't ask me after I post that. Please don't be like retarded Black kids who have no daddy in school when you give it. And you know, that is so pathetic. Please don't show that you're not used to learning. Please don't do that. Seriously, it's not cool. That's why this is recorded. You don't have to ask me to repeat myself because I won't. All you have to do is replay this later. I have people call me like 7, 8 months, 2 years later. Thank you, Mary Raymond. People call and ask me about the thing I did 4 or 5 years ago. It says, well, damn, it's recorded. Why don't you just play it? Like I'm supposed to have recall. God, that's trifling. Folks, y'all should be laughing at any such person. This book is called Race Traits. I'm going to put it out here. My teachers never did this for me. What I'm doing for you, my teachers did not do for me in school. So we're going to start off with this Hoffman, and then we're going to go to Darwin, and then I guess we're going to move back around. But again, let me put this up for you. Frederick Ludwig Hoffman, Race Traits and Tendencies of the American Negro. I'll read a little bit of him in a little bit, but this is a book that Kelly Miller criticized. Let me see what I want to just go to the conclusions. That's when you get to the conclusions. And this is a Xerox copy of a rare book. It's hard to find these things. Let me see if this is a conclusion. Okay, great. He's got a nice chapter on conclusions. So I'll put a thing in that, come back to it. Now, so again, I'm going to touch his book, and I want to remind people of something. When I was talking about that book, Dangerous Learning, I think I have that. Is that somewhere nearby? It may be down. I got so much stuff up here. But the whole effort to prevent Black people from learning how to read and write has a lot to do with trying to control people, where we would be perpetual slaves, or if they were able to kill us off, we wouldn't even know what's going on. Hey, Askew. I got relatives named Askew from North Carolina. So you're probably one of my distant relatives. Peace to you. I enjoy this whole family piece. I also want tonight to connect German Nazism to the United States and to show you how this thing that when they talk about the Holocaust and all of that, it did not start with German Jews. In reality, what happened to German Jews is linked to what's been done to Black Americans. And I want to throw one other specialty book up here. Put more religious stuff. Okay. Put the religious stuff here. I'll get to it later. Put all the religious shit here. And I want to touch some stuff. And I got my Charles Darwin book. But I want to I'm almost done. It's just a whole lot of stuff, okay? And we have had massacres of Black people based on either Nazis directly and indirectly, even if people don't call it that. Okay. Oh, wow, this is so awesome. Okay. So I will be going through a whole lot of stuff tonight. Now, one of the things that came out of Black people learning how to read and write in America was the abolitionist movement, which, much to our lack of credit, and I have a book. I should get that book just so you can see it. And you have to understand that we Black Americans are the damn bad boys and girls of the Western world. Let me see if I can find. I think this book is right here. Yep. Okay. If you got a few pennies, Don H. Doyle has a book, The Age of Reconstruction, and they give all the praise to Lincoln, but Lincoln would have never won without Black people. Black people won the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln said it himself. White folk would have lost. I want you to see this because our presence in America has international importance. And they'll make you think that you're nobody. And our struggle here has made an impact around the world, even if you give all the credit to Lincoln or someone else. We, as a people, have made a global impact. We matter. We matter in apartheid ending in South Africa. We matter in the liberation of Africa. We matter in opposition to the U.S. occupation of Haiti and other things. I'm going to put this book up. It's called The Age of Reconstruction, How Lincoln's New Birth of Freedom Remade the World. Let me read just the inside cover of it so you can understand this Civil War, the Black people demanding their freedom in the United States. In fact, this is a good way to start off. Shook up the whole world. People need to understand that the American Revolutionary War fought from 1775 to 1783 was a global war. It was a worldwide war. The French Empire and the Spanish Empire fought against Great Britain. King Louis XVI bankrupted France and used the French Navy, which was decisive. White American people talk this patriot shit. They're fucking liars. There would have been no successful American Revolution without the involvement of the French. The American Revolution was an international affair. People from all over the world, people like Kosciuszko, there's another one, Pulaski, Casimir Pulaski, Lafayette, Many of these people, European people, came to America thinking that they were going to fight for freedom that included freedom for Black Americans. To quote Lafayette, he would have never raised his sword for the American cause if he thought that slavery for Black people would be continued. He would have never raised his sword. That's Lafayette, this Lafayette Square, Lafayette Park, right across the street from the White House. Several of the statues to foreigners that fought in the American Revolution thought that Black people would be free, that this new democratic society would free everyone. White Americans lied through their teeth. People from Haiti, from Santo Domingo, came to America. Black people came to fight for America to be free. They thought it would help us. We should never forget that Haitians and Black Canadians are the only people that have raised weapons to come to our aid in 400 years. The only Black people around the world that ever gave a damn about us. We need to be careful how we relate to people. Don't let the hype about eating cats and dogs make you just dislike whole groups of people. We can do better than that. We can have differences with people that are asinine from other cultures, but we should know who they are. They should know who we are. I'm saying that to say to you that because America was so important and it grew in importance economically, what happens in America has a worldwide impact. We were instrumental from the 1810s until 1860, 70, where cotton was like the number one commodity in the world. We were picking most of it, the most important workforce on the face of the earth, driving the economy of England and the United Kingdom and what they were doing to India. In fact, Black Americans picking and producing cotton crushed textile production in India on behalf of the British Empire. For the British to break down Indians, there's a little story about the calico dog and the gingham cat. And this is talking about a struggle between the English people sending their textiles to undermine Indian native textiles as a part of subjugating the Indian people to the British East India Company and other corporations and entities of the British Empire to subjugate them off the backs of our people. So we're not bit players. If America's the world's number one power and we're maybe 20% of this country's population, we matter. And we're players. Whether it's Jesse Owens at the Olympics, whether it's the United States having the sick J. Edgar Hoover and Martin Luther King because they were afraid that Dr. King was going to say the United States had apartheid in 1962. They would have probably killed Dr. King a lot earlier. And Dr. King was looking at going to the United Nations before Malcolm X. That's a whole nother discussion. We can pick this up at another time. But I'm trying to say to you, because of our importance, because we've been excluded, marginalized, we are a problem that they made. Their caste system made us a very volatile group. That was it. They wanted to out-group a group to blame for everything. They wanted a group of people to hurt. They wanted to screw over people. They wanted to enslave people and subjugate people. They wanted to pretend that we were all brought from Africa so you could steal land from people like me who are part Indian. I mean, and I say that not to put Africa down. Love Africa. I just sent some money to Africa this morning for my god sister. She wants to build 100 houses in South Africa. So there's no issue with me in Africa. I claim all of my heritage, but I also claim these people here, they ours too, and we were here first. So that's another conspiracy. We're one of the greatest paper genocides in history. A lot of people need to understand you're important, you matter. That's why they bring in people from all over the world to erase and cleanse us. is because America's a crime scene. So Mr. Doyle's book, let me read just the inside jacket of it so you can get a taste of it. And you can understand that the Civil War in America, the cotton production in America, which helped spur the British Empire to have stuff to sell. Uh, in fact, America was almost like what Africa was. They were sending raw cotton to England and they were value adding, making textiles and clothes and other things with the cotton. And where it kept the South backwards because the South didn't manufacture, and the South to this day hasn't recovered from the Civil War. That's why their asses can't forget it. But it helped build up England into the wealthiest nation in the world. It wasn't the only thing, but slavery, sugar, cotton, and other commodities made England. But who cut the sugar? Blacks in the Caribbean and Jamaica and Barbados and Tobago and all those different little islands, right? What happens with us and what's going on with us has had a global impact. And they'll keep telling you that you're marginal, that you don't matter. And because of this volatile population, that for every black that fought for the American Revolution, maybe 6 or 7 fought for the British, right? And then those black folks were a problem in Canada and they had to send their asses back to Africa and so forth. And some of those black people from America that raised hell were sent to Jamaica, and later their descendants burnt Jamaica down. We're a real problem, people, because we want to be free, and a global system that's been set up to permanently enslave certain people. And so wherever we go, if you know, I can tell you about African colonization. They just had the Berlin Conference anniversary, which ended in 1885. So it's 140 years ago. A couple of months ago, maybe March, was 140th anniversary. A lot of those countries had agreements. No Black Americans can come. We don't want them. They'll ruin everything. They were telling Americans, "You niggas, if you let them loose, they'll burn up. They'll burn us out. You keep your blacks from America from coming to Africa." When Marcus Garvey was talking about going to Africa, the French and the English says, "Oh, hell no. Black Americans, we don't want them. We no like." I've read documents, the Belgians, the French, the Portuguese, no Black Americans. The French, please. They didn't let Black Americans in Kenya until independence. They didn't want them over there. They may make the Black people mad and stand up. Black Americans got blamed for the rebellions in Malawi, Mozambique, South Africa, Angola. We sure did. Something about our people that wants to be free goes against the grain of the white supremacist global system. Therefore, the same way you have the international Jew, that these people, there's the international nigger who is a global pariah. Whereas they say the Jews control banking, Black people just want to be free, and it's messing with somebody's bottom line. Somebody's bank statement is threatened by Black folks not wanting to pick cotton or be anybody's slave, or their kids to be bottom bitches to pedophile masters. So what do you do with such a population? And in particular, you have a population, as I read from Kelly Miller's response to Thomas Dixon about the leopard spots, that Black folks between 1865 and 1900 were 50% literate, with white folks burning schools and killing Black and white teachers and destroying stuff and underfunding schools. Achieved 50% literacy in 35 years with no help, very little help, less than what they claimed. And these Black folks that could read, like Frederick Douglass and Martin Delany and Alexander Crummell, they were able to go all over the world and speak out against white supremacy and the falsities that were being told. And as a result, there used to be this thing called pro-slavery thought, Christian pro-slavery thought, which is what I'm going to come to later, because Christian pro-slavery thought is a precursor to Anglo-American or white American Nazism. Comes out of the justification that black people are the natural slaves, and if we won't be slaves, we need to be exterminated. There is a theory. In fact, wow, it started today. So, wow, let me see. Oh, wow. 210 years ago, thereabout, the American Colonization Society was formed. The American Colonization Society was formed out of, in particular, people from the Presbyterian, or should I say, the Reformed Church tradition of Scotland, in particular, Princeton University, came out of the idea you had a racist slaveholder by the name of Francis Scott Key who had a problem. And by the way, let's just talk about another global fight. There was a fight between the United States and Great Britain. And let's go all the way back. Let's roll all the way back. Damn, this is complicated. I have to give this history lesson so you can understand why people want to kill your asses. I said to you during the American Revolution, for every black that fought for the Americans, maybe 5 or 6 people fought for the British. And not only that, there was an American Revolution. There was also an American Civil War, per se, that was going on at the time of the American Revolution, where white people were killing each other, in particular in the South, in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. People who were loyal to King George, people who wanted to keep their damn slaves, right? Who didn't want this damn revolution because they thought, you're talking about freedom, man, but my niggas, that's all I got, right? And so the English, if I can remind you, the Royal Governor of Virginia, Lord Dunmore, said, hey, look, everybody black that's tired of getting their ass beat, having to work for other people, if you fight for the crown, we'll give you a gun and your freedom. Well, if you've had your ass beat your whole life, someone gave you a gun, a chance to shoot at people that sold your mama, I'd fight too. So they created a problem. You need to understand that during the American Revolution, as many as 1 in 6, 1 in 7 blacks ran away. 100,000 black folks ran away. That's twice as many as folks that were running away annually when there were millions of blacks in the country at the height of the antebellum cotton boom. That many black folks ran away. So folks were in the Dismal Swamp in Virginia. They were in the Everglades. They were in remote areas. They got with certain Indian groups. And then a whole bunch of people that were called slaves were Indians. In North Carolina, 1 in 3 so-called slaves were Aboriginal Indigenous Americans, as was true throughout the country. So we just deal with this now. Because when the British were forced out of the United States, once they lost at Yorktown, but prior to that, the English took tens of thousands. What they would do is go to anybody that was a patriot, anybody that was talking a whole bunch of shit about King George, who had a black wife, was probably pillow talking, saying, free the niggas, free the niggas, free the niggas. Don't you love me, baby? Okay. Queen Charlotte, North Carolina, the little black one with the big nose like mine. That was King George's wife. Understand why they couldn't trust him? He's got this black wife that's turning him out, saying let all the black people go. Shit, I'd rebel too. I don't lose my damn, my chattel collateral. I need to remind you also, a African from what's called Nigeria got brought to Virginia, got radicalized by his experience in America, got taken to England as a slave, ran away from his white master in London, and got with some abolitionists. And he went all the way to the top of the English legal system, and they ruled that slavery was illegal in the British Empire in 1772. When did they declare independence from England for freedom? 1776. All of American history is a lie. White folks are liars. Sorry. Something else. Don't blame me. I didn't do anything. All I'm doing is tell you the history, because I have to explain to you why folks would want to kill you. Samuel Adams was a bootlegger. What were they doing? They were smuggling in sugar. What were they making? They were making booze. They were making gin illegally, not paying taxes. That's why America was booming, making booze and giving naval stores. Naval stores are what you use for old wooden ships. So you had hemp, the same kind that you smoke, but doesn't have a lot of THC. In fact, in many places in the South, it's called nigger hemp because black folks were responsible for growing and cultivating it. Even George Washington was a nigger hemp farmer, along with being a slave breeder, but they all denied that. I grew up with George Washington's black descendants. We used to get whipped in school for talking about being descended from George Washington. I had a friend named Harold that looked like a little black George Washington. And I remember when the teachers said that George Washington was sterile. And I started poking in the ribs my friend Harold. We started laughing. I got thrown out of class. Teacher yoked me and threw me out of class for, don't you need to keep your shut up. This was 72. So that 50, 53 years ago. Okay, shit, things just don't change, do they? Or it was 71. I think it's 71. I'm sorry. 54 years ago. There were kids in the classroom, in my class, I lived in Virginia, who were George Washington's descendants. And the teachers were taught to lie to us that George Washington was sterile. As much as people didn't talk about sex, why did they have to tell us that George Washington couldn't bust a nut? No, let me go back to what I want to say. George Washington and all these other people were slave masters. And something happened. When you learn about the American Revolution, they talk about the intolerable acts that brought them to want to have this damn revolution. But the thing that really got them, they'll talk about the tea in the harbor. And by the way, they made themselves black to look like Indians. They didn't go in as white people with wigs on. They went in black because Indians aren't white. Same way that white folks wear black masks to commit crimes. There was a group of white guys that were going around killing people in Western Pennsylvania and Ohio. They were called the Black Boys. I got the book, I can prove it. So white folks committing crimes and attributing it to black people, or well, which includes Indians, right? This is as old. You know, they've been blaming niggas since they've been here. Now, I'm building a case. So they talk about the Stamp Act, they talk about the tea, they talk about the Quartering Act, that you had to like give up bed and board to British soldiers. But the thing that they don't really talk about is the Declaratory Act. See, that's the bitch act. That's the act that set these fuckers off. See, the Declaratory Act, which was passed by Parliament, basically said that the colonists, the white people in America, English and whatever the hell they were, German, one of my grandfathers started Germantown, Pennsylvania. Yes, I have some Nazi in me. I hope you can tell. I'm just saying, we can't control who our ancestors are. They said that no longer could the colonies make laws that were not superseded by the laws passed by Parliament in Great Britain. In other words, if they outlawed slavery with what's called the Somerset Act, let me put this up here so you, because I don't want y'all asking me. The Somerset Act of 1772, with the Declaratory Act, basically when they ended slavery in the United Kingdom, that's Wales, Scotland, Ireland, and the British slaves were called villains, like villainy, villain. That basically, that's a way of like saying white nigger or white slave. Okay, So you can say that villainous person, villain, okay? And the system was called the lineage. The lineage was outlawed in 1772. In other words, a black person that was from Africa, partially raised in America, raised so much hell in England until slavery was outlawed in the British Empire. See, the impact of the Black American experience has global implications. And imagine if that's messing with the British East India Company, the British West India Company. It's messing with Samuel Adams and all these other grifter white folks who have slaves or are smuggling and are stealing, letting them no longer be able to exploit black people for their labor and to sell them guns and illegal shit to get them to kill each other in Africa. You fucked up their economic gain. And it's just one out of control nigga that someone taught how to read. One black person learning how to read is damn. That's why they say you give a nigger an inch, she'll take a mile. Give them a little bit of education. Give them anything, therefore you give them nothing. You don't give them jobs, healthcare, because if you empower them in any way, they will take us over. So the Declaratory Act said that whatever the British Parliament said was binding to the colonies, meaning that all of you people like George Washington and all the others, Pinckney and all these fuckers that signed the Declaration of Independence, you guys are going to lose your niggas because the English people who own slaves in absentia in Jamaica and throughout the Caribbean, they're going to shut your asses down. You got me? And so, I mean, and what did white folk do? They started getting guns. And you got to get them like clockwork. When white folk get mad, they ready to start killing people. Right? Cops have to kill about 50 people in the neighborhood before Negroes will riot. White folks will riot over their sports team when they got to burn out half the city because I'm mad. I don't understand why. I'm just saying it happens. I know it's true. If you live in a college town, damn, don't let their team win. And don't let there be any beer on tap anywhere. Or some shit they made in the tub. They have keg parties, piss in the street, fight, whatever. But it's just useful in discretion. If you have a blunt somewhere smoking your own house, they're ready to knock the door in. And I'm not even pushing for people to smoke weed. In fact, I couldn't even take the weed oil, that stuff. I got high twice. I didn't like that. I don't like being high. I hate it. Now, I'm going somewhere. So the American Revolution was an effort to preserve the enslavement of Black American people. The British knew this. So when the Americans rose in rebellion, the Royal Governor of Virginia, Dunmore, said, hey, look, hey, blacks, you want to get free? I got a little gun. Want a gun, nigga? You want to shoot at your master? Come with us. We'll give you a gun. And so these people, by the thousands, when the British began to lose the American, when they were losing, they began to take these people by the tens of thousands out of America. They took them to Canada and the Caribbean. And they took it from the wealthiest white families in the country. And when you take from rich white folk, they don't care about nobody else but themselves. They had a hostile relationship between the United States and Great Britain all the way up to 1815, which you get the Treaty of Ghent, where the Queen of Spain helped negotiate and broker an agreement between England and Britain to stop fighting each other. And England compensated all of the rich white people whose niggas got taken. That's what ended the War of 1812 as a payoff. And the War of 1812 was really about Black people being stolen from rich white people. Real talk. Don't let anyone, like the Civil War wasn't about slavery. No, the War of 1812 had a lot to do with Black folk who had been taken. And in fact, if it were not the case, it wouldn't have been part of the negotiated peace. So get out of my face if you're a racist on here. Now, all of that to say, the same thing that happened in 1815, because something that happened in either 1813 or 14. The British, when they came in to turn America out, tried to do a Lord Dunmore 2.0. And they came down through the Chesapeake and they sealed it off to shut America down navally. And they did a little better. We had a guerrilla war that you don't ever hear about in school here, where the British were giving weapons to black folks to burn up and bomb and destroy white people's shit. Right? This is like, just fuck them up here. You want a gun? I mean, did he hit you? Did he really beat you? Oh, did they beat you? Oh, would you like a gun? Oh, we can shoot some of the Yankees. They treat you so bad. Would you like a gun? Maybe you could join the British Royal Marine. We could use a few darkies, right? Most people don't know that the British Navy, even back then, was about 2 to 3% or more black. In case people don't know that. And there's been a history of blacks being in the naval forces of Spain and Portugal going back hundreds of years. This real talk. The British began to recruit black men from the Baltimore, D.C., Delaware, all up in there, and were using them. And they created an army. They were called the Colonial Marines. And these Colonial Marines, along with the regular British soldiers, beat the United States Army at the Battle of Bladensburg. Bladensburg is about 6, 7 miles to the east of my house. And the United States Army, they saw all these guys, and they were black folks with hate in their eyes. Not only that, many people from Canada who were the children of people who were able to escape with the British and the American Revolution came back as soldiers to try to get their families out. The same way I have a book called Last Scene, and it talks about the quest from about 1865 to 1935 of people trying to find family members sold or ripped away from them by their slave masters. A lot of us have always tried to put our black world together in spite of the white world having the overwhelming force to pull it apart. Until recently, now we fuck up our own families and everything else in tandem with the other people that hate us. That shit's stupid and suicidal. But back to my point. What happened in Bladensburg, Francis Scott Key had a friend who was a doctor who got his ass beat by some black soldiers. And they arrested his ass and had him they had his ass as a prisoner. And so Francis Scott Key's A Star Spangled Banner is a white hate song in part against black people. That's why the people were kneeling. And yours truly, I began talking about this on Iranian state television back in 2011. Like what, 4 years before Kaepernick and them started doing shit. Not that I need any credit. We are supposed to get people to open their minds and think. And we always you only do one stanza of the national anthem. The third one goes something like, and where's that band that so vauntingly swore that the havoc of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country would leave us no more. Their blood has wiped out their foul footstep pollution. There could be no refuge or flight from the gloom of the grave. For the hireling was their word for a black person that served the British to try to bring America down over slavery. Hireling and slave. And the flag of the free, so what doth wave, right? That's what the Star Spangled Banner is about, is basically kill niggas. That's your national song. That's why the song's written in 1814, and it doesn't become the national song until about 1933. There was an objection to the song, of course, from Southern members of Congress who knew what the song was really all about. Black folk getting buck wild on white people. So your national song is about an international situation involving black people. You dummies. And by the way, after the Battle of Bladensburg, what did the British do? They let the black people burn DC to the ground. And the Star Spangled Banner, in part, is to keep those same British with the black dudes from burning Baltimore, our second or third largest city in the country, from destroying Baltimore. That would have ended the war. And for folk who had been slaves and messed over, they had nothing to lose. They burnt everything. Now you see why that bitch Dolly Madison went to get the silverware in the China. They didn't want niggas eating on their nice plates and silver. That's the Southern culture. You can't drink out of people's cups. Like in India, the untouchables can't use the same teacups as the twice-borns, the Brahmins, the Kamala Harris types. I even have them, by the way, let me just introduce that while I'm in there. I'm going to do a link tonight. Do I have it? I know I got it up here. Here it is. This is called, by Nicholas Goodrick Clark, Hitler's Priestess, Savitri Devi, the Hindu Aryan Myth, and Neo-Nazism. That the Indians like Kamala Harris, all of them are down with Nazis and they're anti-black. And our stupid asses voted for that bitch. 80% deep black men. You're disgusting. And black women, y'all deserve to lose your men to white men. Y'all deserve for black men to leave y'all for white women for supporting Kamala like y'all did. I said it. I don't care if you don't like it. Be miserable. I'm miserable with the black agenda being betrayed because someone has a vagina. If Shannon Sharp is wrong, Kamala Harris is wrong. If me backing Shannon Sharp is uncool, you backing Kamala Harris is uncool. Got it? Whether you agree with me or not. And I don't need you. I'm not trying to sleep with you. And anyway, so let's go back. So we got this established that black folks helped burn DC to the ground. And so when the war was over, as DC still smoldering, this little bastard named Francis Scott Key gets with other people with this whole idea to solve the race problem in America. Because there's this racist theology out of the School of Religion or Divinity School of Princeton called the Providential Design, which says that basically, and there was this whole theory, that black people would overpopulate and overrun white people. They were saying about 1900, there'd be like 120 million black people at the way we were reproducing. And white people would be wiped out by black people. The solution is to make certain that only enslaved black people could live in America, and all of the free black folks would be sent to Africa. The same way the British, who had a thing called the Black Poor Laws, which led to, I think, what's its name, Mansfield, one of the people, and they created this thing that all the black people by about 1806 had to get the fuck out of England. So some of the black Americans, others had been taken to England. We gotta get these motherfuckers. They gotta go. Didn't get the blacks. And so they sent them to Sierra Leone. And they took them out of Canada from Nova Scotia, Africatown. Okay. Africatown. It's like black area inside to this day in Nova Scotia. Sent them to Freetown. And Freetown was also the place where the British, who were trying to shut down and run America down, is to prevent people from doing commerce and slaves, and they would drop them off at Freetown. America decided to copy the British, but for a different reason. So all your free black people, so they could never compete with white people, so there wouldn't be any recollection or presentation to enslaved blacks that you could ever be free. If we sent all the free blacks to Africa, to Liberia, then America would work. And the Providential Design, which is quite interesting, says that black people, free black people in America, were nasty, vile, dirty, diseased, criminals, just irreformable. There's just nothing that could be done for black people. But if you send black people back to Africa, That would make Africa rich and prosperous, and black folks would be industrious, and they would have morals and values, and they'd stop drinking and whoring and killing and fighting and dancing and being ignorant. If you just get them through across the salt water back to Africa, all of a sudden God would clean their dirty black asses up, and they'd be able to save darkened Africa, with the little caveat that they knew that Liberia wasn't a healthy place and that you had a 50-50 chance of dying within your first to second year there. So basically, it was a death trap. So it was a way to kill off people as well as say you're giving them a new home. How y'all doing? I'm almost done with the history lesson. I can get into the reading. I just want to give you the background to make the connections. Now, understand something. Within almost immediately, about 1816, you began to have major black protests in places like Philadelphia against colonization, and people saying, we ain't going no place. And by the 1820s, with the Jacksonian era, you get white folks attacking and killing black people in urban centers throughout America from the 1820s all the way up to the 1920s. You have a century of white people attacking black urban and rural communities, but in particular urban ones, the Jacksonian riots. And of course, that goes into the draft riots in New York and other places where things would be done to black people. Things as crazy as, I think, in Cincinnati, them getting a cannon and bombing a black community with the cannon long before the airplane for Black Wall Street. Um, and I need to remind people, Helena, Arkansas, a squad of almost 600 soldiers with the governor of Arkansas, many of them armed with machine guns, mass killing black folks in the Arkansas Delta near Helena, Arkansas. These things going now. What I'm going to say to you is, alongside America becoming a new nation, many black people got their freedom. Many black folks, Phyllis Wheatley and a lot of other people, learned how to read and write. Some of the first stuff they began to do is challenge racism. I have my slave Bible here, and their whole system of trying to control people is through this hijacked, racist ass, genocidal, neo Nazi, white Christianity. Okay, and therefore, so we're clear, these black folks began to come out. Henry Highland Garnett, Maria Stewart, the guy whose last name is Parker. You begin to have black abolitionism along with the Quakers and others, the growth of black folks that could read and write that began to agitate against slavery. But then within 2 generations of the Constitution being ratified, you have a literate class of black people who are attacking the moral, ethical principles of slavery, using literature in the Bible. In fact, we talked about David Walker's book, the uh, uh, the Appeal, that black folks began to counter. Just a handful of black people that could read and write were shaking up the whole damn country. Frederick Douglass and crew. All right. In order to counter this, these people came up with pro-slavery thought, curse of ham. They started coming up with all kinds of stuff. There's a guy named, it's not in Glidden. They had their whole manual about how inferior black people were. They had smaller skulls. They've been doing everything, but in particular, they were arguing from the Bible, which is argued to this day. And there are 2 names that I want people to remember. It's Robert Dabney and William Branham. I think Robert is the proper first name. I mean, Robert Dabney, his book is called I'm putting this up in the, I had that book. I don't feel like reading it. These are some of the main exponents of religious racism and bigotry, or basically white Nazi Christianity. It's not Christianity, it's fake. Robert Dabney had a book called Defense of Virginia, and William Branham, who is a modern day Robert Dabney, okay, has the serpent seed. And these people have worked systematically to destroy or keep black folks enslaved. The best example of it is called the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC. It's based in Northern Virginia, and all they do is create uh, uh, legal policy that can be enacted into laws to fight anything that benefits black people in all the legislature cities and in the Congress of the United States. And they work along with the white evangelicals like Paula White. All of them are down. They're against reparations, they're against civil rights, they're against emancipation. Robert Dabney taught that slavery was God's will and abolitionism was the devil's will. And William Branham, who has the serpent seed, along with Kenneth Copeland, who a lot of you stupid black folks support these people because they say they're Christian. There's a video, and if anyone wants a copy, you can email me at wrandyshort@gmail.com. I'll send you the link where there's a video where Kenneth Copeland is saying that the devil is black. William Branham argued that black people, the snake fucked Eve in the garden, or the devil fucked Eve in the garden, and black people come from a satanic bloodline, so we don't deserve to exist. Now, let me get to the Nazis. Even though they had the pro-slavery thought, the Civil War with just a handful of people, blacks, who started the Republican Party, oh yes, we did, beat and defeated the pro-slavery people. And what did white folks do? They changed the goalpost. Okay, since we can't argue the Bible openly, that's why William Branham's serpent seed stuff isn't taught openly. Then you get Charles Darwin, and you get his cousin Francis Galton, who comes up with eugenics. And one of the books, when you hear about Charles Darwin, they always tell you about the origin of species, right? They tell you the origins of species, but they don't give you the full name of the origins of species, because if you did, if you did, you would find yourself learning the actual title of the book that talks about favorite races. And we're not a favorite race. We're the subhumans. So these people came up with pseudoscience to justify, because they couldn't do it with the Bible anymore. People like Frederick Douglass, Martin Delany, Edward Blyden, all these people blew these people out of the water. So they began to go to pseudoscience, so they could lie and say that science was the same way they got your ass to take those stupid shots. And the real title of Origins of the Species, which is shortened, hides its racial character. And then there's another book he had, which really is a more vicious one. It's called The Descent of Man. And of course, black people are monkeys. All of this was to fight against, in particular, the main black folks raising hell about abolition and pushing against white people are black Americans. You didn't have a lot of Jamaicans, abolitionists that are known. In fact, I have a book somewhere about famous Jamaican abolitionists. He was a half-breed, like Frederick Douglass. You don't even hear about him. Most Jamaicans don't know about him because those folks tended to have to leave Jamaica and go to Europe, and they didn't get to come back, and they tend to die young. So, are y'all getting me? Out of Darwinism and racial supremacy, the Nazis and all these other people who all were anti proper Christianity and went off into science to justify doing whatever the hell they want to do to people that they wanted to destroy. Okay. And in Europe, this evolution has had a secular shape. In America, because people have always needed to be justified in how they treated Black Americans, they've always kept this religious covering to give them a pass. So, when I say to you that Nazism, which by the way drew influence, there's a guy by the name of Houston Chamberlain, he's an Englishman, who went to propagandize the German people to hate Blacks and others. In other words, other European people. Now, there's a guy in France named Gobineau, and of course, they had Haiti. I'm not saying the Germans had it together. The Germans busy fighting each other. Germany didn't become a country until really a unified Germany until 1871. That's what, 5, 6 years after the Civil War ended. These other countries, came together, and they're on their white thing way before Germany got into it. So stop just looking at Germany and start looking at who was really messing over Black people, who hurt the most Black lives. Portugal, Spain, Belgium existed before. In fact, Belgium had the Congo within 15 years of there being a unified Germany. Just remember that. The Danes had some Black people, not much, but the real countries that had real slavery, like England, France, Spain, Portugal, Holland to a lesser degree. Those are the places where some of the most extreme racist ideas came from. Portugal and Spain tended to get their stuff from the Catholic Church. They weren't as big on the science side. They already had that doctrine of discovery from the Pope, right? And they were bit players at a certain point because they lost everything. In fact, part of the Black people, by the way, helping to win the American Revolution, even though most Blacks ran away or fought against it, the situation in America helped spur the Haitian Revolution, and the Blacks in Haiti helped liberate all of South and Central America from Spain. Real talk. Simon Bolivar, Haiti financed Black people, so I have to give the Haitians their credit. Black Americans and Black Haitians have been the most impactful people fighting against slavery in world history. Holland, it's a bit player, dude. Holland's big stuff is Indonesia. They didn't have much here. I mean, they didn't even last long here. I mean, if you know your history, just know the Dutch didn't have much, but they had what? Suriname. It's still small to this day. The big players: English, French, Spanish, Portuguese. The other people, big players. The Danes had what? Virgin Islands. They had Delaware. They lost it. Or Swedes, whatever. They didn't hold it. Okay, it didn't mean they weren't racist, but the big folks: French, Spanish, Portuguese. Now, I'm almost done with this, and now I can read. When this evolutionary stuff came out, in particular following the Civil War, and people were really mad, right? And they got into the science. Within 20 years of the Civil War ending, you had the Berlin Conference, and you had things like anthropology and all these other things develop. There's a book by Stephen Gould called The Mismeasurement of Man, and it talks about all the scientific racism and bigotry to justify the hatred and exploitation of other people. This is that's what they had to do, right? And so I mean, and they did everything, man. They did everything. If they said that black folk had, I think it's called the mismeasurement of man, a mismeasure. It's one of the two. I'm gonna put it up here. Can someone check? I think it's a mismeasure of man. Stephen Goodall's right. I think he was at Harvard. Now, out of that, you got also the cousin of Charles Darwin, and out of Charles Darwin comes social Darwinism. Social Darwinism basically teaches that some people are superior to others and who are inferior us, right? And his cousin Francis Galton comes up with eugenics, which means perfect race, and the perfect people, of course, are white. And so Nazism gets a lot of its gusto from America, Britain, and France in terms of the racial hatred, right? And then the Germans, their scientific stuff, and they become the dominant science thing. So that brings us to our guy Hoffman. And let me just read this. I just want to read the inside jacket of Doyle's book. The Age of Reconstruction looks beyond the post-Civil War America to tell the story of how the Union victory and Lincoln's assassination set off dramatic international reaction that drove European empires out of the Americas, hastened the end of slavery in Latin America, and ignited a host of democratic reforms in Europe. It also impacted Asia. Within 3 years of the American Civil War ending, the Japanese entered into what's called the Meiji Restoration because the Japanese themselves were having a civil war. It ended in 1868 and they put in Meiji, and that's how Japan began to modernize. I need to remind everybody that the Japanese were forced to trade with America because of Commodore Perry, who was mixed race. But one of the very first things that they did to the Japanese to make the Japanese like them, they introduced them to sambo music and minstrelry, making fun of black people. So one of the very first words that the Japanese had is called kurambo, which means nigger for Japanese. These people wanted the Japanese don't like black Americans. They're stupid. They're worthless. To see that's how important. Just don't let them in your country. You just don't know how bad they are. We know niggers. You don't. Kurambo. And in certain places in Japan, you can get doormats or rugs that are black person that you can walk on. Kurambo. In this international history of Reconstruction, Don Doyle chronicles the world events inspired by the Civil War between 1865 and 1870. France withdrew from Mexico. Russia sold Alaska to the United States. Britain proclaimed the new state of Canada. Canada became a nation in 1867. I need to remind people 50,000 people from Canada, black and white, fought on behalf of black freedom in the United States. Many of you don't know this. British workers demanded more voting rights. Spain toppled Queen Isabella II. She's the one that negotiated the 1815 Treaty of Ghent, the enslaved nigga payoff deal. Spain toppled Queen Elizabeth II and ended slavery in its Caribbean colonies. Cubans rose against Spanish rule. The patron saint of Cuba is a black man named Antonio Maceo. They got help and money from people in Florida, Afro-Cubans, and sometimes Black Americans, and others supported the Cuban Revolution against the Spaniards. We Black Americans are everywhere. Even small, you have no idea. That's why people always try to drag us in their stuff. We need to start taking care of ourselves. France overthrew Napoleon III, and the kingdom of Pope Pius IX fell before the Italian Risorgimento. The Risorgimento, which took place about, I think, again, about 1868, ended slavery in the Papal States. In other words, the Roman Catholic Church practiced chattel slavery in Italy until the Civil War. In fact, the Pope, who was down for Abraham Lincoln getting killed by Catholics from Maryland, forgive me, some of them are my white relatives, like the dude that patched up John Wilkes Booth. The name is Fogg. I'm sorry. And no, Mudd, Mudd. I'm sorry. John Wilkes Booth, who was a drug dealer, who was supplying dope to Mary Todd Lincoln, who blew her husband's head off, who was switch hitting on her anyway. It's real talk. The Catholics, it was all a Catholic conspiracy against Lincoln. Don't blame me, and I have Catholic family. They're all down in Southern Maryland. It's not my fault. I'm just being honest and shit. Some European liberals, including Victor Hugo, the one who wrote A Tale of Two Cities, and Giuseppe Mazzini, even called for a United States of Europe. Yet, for all the achievements of an optimism, the new birth of freedom was short-lived. By the 1890s, again, Black folks helped light the fuse for global freedom. By the 1890s, right? Reconstruction had been undone in the United States and abroad, and America had become an exclusionary democracy based on white supremacy and a very different kind of model to the world. Let us remember, by the 1890s, the United States had begun to do genocide against the Black people, or I should say the people of the Philippines, who they called niggers. Yes, they did. The United States in the 1880s had supported the Berlin Conference, which helped set up the genocide in the Congo. The United States did it. In fact, the whole idea was by a white senator from Alabama named John Tyler Morgan, who wanted to deport all the Black Americans to the Congo to get rid of us. Also, they thought that Congo would be a good source for selling cotton to naked Africans, the documents in the Library of Congress manuscript reading room. Thank you very much. At home and abroad, Reconstruction, as was W.E.B. Du Bois wrote, the greatest and most important step towards world democracy of all men of all races ever taken in the modern world. Our people's effort to free themselves inspired and caused a ripple effect globally, and there had to be a price to be paid for it. Let's read some of the prices. So there's a whole tradition of dealing with people who don't understand that they're supposed to be subordinate and they're going to be treated any old kind of way. We're white and we said so. We charge genocide. This is the brief of William L. Patterson, the gentleman that was the inspiration to Malcolm X and many others, and my friend, Brother Larry Pinckney, the former Black Panther and Republic of New Africa member who successfully sued the United States and European countries for racism, genocide, slavery, and colonization. His name is Larry Pinckney. Look him up. There is a legal case he won. It's already been established in international law, but you'll never hear about it because Black people that do what truly matters don't get celebrated. Larry Pinckney. Perhaps one day we can talk about his case. I'm going to read some of how Black people handled, and I want to just remind you. So if people say, "Oh, he's overemphasizing," okay, right? Article 2, Article 2 and 3 of the Genocide Convention Reads, it cannot be emphasized too often that those killings of members of group are recorded are a distinct minority of those actually killed. This is historically true. Thus, former Confederate General Reynolds of Texas testifying before a Congressional Joint Committee on Insurrectionary Affairs said that during Reconstruction, the murder of Negroes is so common as to render it impossible to keep an accurate account of them. As recently as 1940, a congressional report quotes a native Southerner who must remain anonymous to effect that countless Negroes are lynched yearly, but their disappearance is shrouded in mystery, for they are dispatched quietly and without general knowledge. We call attention to the number of cases in which the government of the United States of America is directly involved, such as the slaying of William McGee, Edward Honeycutt, and the Martinville Seven, which the Supreme Court of the United States refused to permit them life, despite its legal power and its duty to do so under the 14th Amendment, guaranteeing the due process of law and equality before the law, which was those executed never in fact received. Give me 1 second. I need to do something. I'll be right back. I'm going to read some more from Mr. Patterson. Just one moment. All right. So I'm going to just read a little few of these cases and to show you Dennis Harris, a 22-year-old war veteran, was shot to death in Atlanta, Georgia, by police and a civilian as he drove a white man to meet a white woman at a rendezvous the pair had made by telephone. The telephone conversation was overheard by the woman's husband. Harris was killed by bullets from the police pistol. He had driven the car at the request of the white man. Fulton County's coroner called the killing a justifiable homicide. August 15th, Lilla Bella Carter, 16 years old, was raped and murdered at Pine Island, South Carolina, under circumstances which pointed suspiciously to a white insurance agent. When the young woman's father went to the authorities to demand an investigation, he was jailed. Mrs. Carter's neck and jaw were broken, and she had been placed face down in a pool of water in order to give the impression that she had met her death by drowning. No action was taken against the rapist. This is in 1945. August 21st, Irvin Jones was fatally wounded in his home in Portland, Oregon, when 3 police officers came to the house to search the premises. They had no warrant and failed to identify themselves as officers. The Jones family believed them to be burglars. Jones defended his home against their entry. One of the officers went to the rear of the house, entered, and shot Jones in the back with a sawed-off shotgun, killing him. The coroner's jury exonerated the police, and the grand jury subsequently refused to indict them. September 9th, Moses Green, a veteran of World War I, was shot to death by 2 Aiken County law officers near Ellington, South Carolina. The officers were deputy sheriffs who were identified Green was returning from town with his truck, and he stepped into his own yard. He, w- he was shot without warning. Jesse Payne, this is October 10th, was taken from the jail at Madison, Florida, and shot to death by a lynch mob. Payne had been removed from the lynch-proof state prison and taken to an unguarded one-story shack jail at Madison and left there unguarded. On the date of his arrest on July 4th, he was attacked and wounded by a posse. Attorney General J. Tom Watson, Florida, recommended the suspension of the sheriff in charge of the jail, stating the evidence indicated the jail had not been broken into, but that Payne had been delivered up to the lynchers by the law officers. Nevertheless, the two Madison County grand juries refused to indict the sheriff, and Governor Millard Caldwell refused to suspend him. October 29th, police emptied their guns into an unidentified Negro man at 8th Avenue and 144th Street in New York City. Eyewitnesses stated that the man, with his hands raised in surrender after having been pursued by a police car, was alighting from a Buick sedan when he was shot. When a crowd gathered to protest, police reinforcements arrived and clubbed the protesters. Several witnesses went to Harlem Hospital where the man lay bleeding. This subsequent delegation was unable to find out the man's name. October 29th, the body of Sam McFadden, a veteran, was found floating in the Swanee River near Live Oak, Florida. Governor Millard Caldwell's own investigator and 20 witnesses gave evidence that McFadden had been lynched. Evidence was also given that the Branford, Florida police chief, a wealthy turpentine operator reputed to use peon labor, and another man were the lynchers. According to the evidence, McFadden, who had left the home to buy groceries, was put into a car and driven in the direction of the river. His body was discovered by two fishermen, and the date of the lynchers was fixed by the authorities as approximately September 21st. Hold on. The Swanee grand jury refused to indict any of the three. Later, the ex-marshal of Branford was tried for allegedly subjecting McFadden, who was 60 years old, to trial by ordeal and then forcing him to drown himself. He was charged with arresting McFadden, beating him with a whip and a pistol, and making him jump into the river. The ex-marshal was convicted, sentenced to 1 year in prison and a $1,000 fine. 71-year-old Miss Niecy Brown of Selma, Alabama, was beaten to death by a drunken policeman who was off duty. He beat her over the head with a bottle. The officer was acquitted in November 1945 by an all-white jury, which deliberated a few minutes. The attorney for the policeman stated at the trial, "If we convict this brave man who's upholding the banner of white supremacy by his actions, then we all may well give up our guns to the niggers and let them run the black belt." A new trial had been ordered for the United States Supreme Court freed Baker County, Georgia sheriff and two former white police officers for the death beating of Robert Hall in October 1943. Hall had been arrested at his home in Newton, Georgia on January 29, 1943. The next day, the sheriff and two other whites beat him about the head with blackjacks until he fell unconscious. His death occurred soon afterwards. 14-year-old Wilbert Cohen was killed when two bullets from a policeman's gun were fired at him as he was leaving a friend's house. No action was taken against the policeman, either by the grand jury or by the police department. St. Clair Presley, a war veteran, was killed in Jacksonville, South Carolina. As he stepped off the train in Jacksonville on his way to Hemingway, South Carolina, Presley was arrested on suspicion of implication of minor disturbance, which had occurred several days before. Presley offered no resistance to arrest, but he was marched down the street. The policeman suddenly pulled the trigger of his gun and killed the Negro veteran. I could go on and on. Understand, under the Genocide Convention, killing one person of a group deliberately is an act of genocide. I just read you about 10 or 12. There have been thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of these kinds of murders and atrocities. In fact, every year in the United States, a few thousand black men are murdered in jails all over the country. In fact, under your president, Ofaga, They refused to even take account of how many people were dying in prisons for 8 years. So I don't know how many black men, but the number ranges somewhere between 2 to 5,000. So easily, let's say it's three. 3 times 8 is 24. As many as 24,000 black men were murdered in prisons, suicided in this country, and you guys still love him and that mannish bitch Michelle that he's met. I hope they split up. That thing always looked bootleg to me. Genocide does not have to be with cattle cars and people wearing stripes and that. Killing people, denying people stuff, healthcare and so forth is genocidal. Now, I just want you to know, and all of these were happening right after World War II when they were doing the Nuremberg trial for the Nazis. That in America, black folks just being murdered because folks wanted to, and just as the guy said, killing black people is so common until we don't even count it. We don't know how many people. When they say 4 or 5,000 people were lynched, they don't know that. Those are the people that they could get a number for, where people weren't afraid they'd be killed if they said anything. We don't have a good number for black people killed between 1865 and 1965. My guess you could be 300,000 people or more. Okay, you could kill one person that is Israeli, and that be seen as genocidal. And I don't want anyone killing and hurting people that are Jewish or Israeli. I'm just making a point. But thousands of black folks don't count. That's our fault too. Now, I was talking about what's her face, uh, Washington, Harriet Washington, and this, and I wanted to look at one of these people that was into Darwin, who's a precursor to the Nazis, which is Frederick Hoffman. And I want to read his conclusions on his book. It's not too long, and it'll go real fast. But the basis of American health policy, and just as sure as I'm sitting here, my mother would be dead if I didn't stay in the hospital with her. That's why you didn't see me. Then I could kill my mother. Hell with that. Okay. They already decided that her time was up. I couldn't buy into that. I'm sorry. It's my damn mother, right? Okay. Chapter 7. And here's the book again. Race Traits and Tendencies of the American Negro, Frederick Ludwig Hoffman. This is a reprint from the collection of the University of Michigan Library. And this is a person who went all over and told the Congress, don't do anything for black people, don't help them. He's doing the same thing that the Heritage Foundation and other people are doing right now. People don't need this stuff. They're bad. They say it differently now. Conclusion. All the vulgar modes of escaping from the consideration of the effect of the social and moral influences on the human mind, the most vulgar is that attributing all the diversities of conduct and character inherent and natural differences. In treatises on pathology, we find as much as the influence of age, sex, and temperament on disease, and concise descriptions of affections peculiar to certain countries, but almost nothing as to influence of race. The central fact deductible from the result of this investigation into the traits and tendencies of the colored population of this country is plainly and emphatically the powerful influence of race and the struggle for life. That's Darwinism. So they're applying Darwin, his theory, which has never been proven to be factual. So in the struggle for life and the struggle of races, and the favorite races, the whiter ones, have to win against the no good, darker ones. So you go from the curse of Ham and all of that to, well, these folks are more like monkeys than we are, so we should get all the shit. In marked contrast with frequent assertions such as that of Mill, that race is not important in environment or the conditions of life are the most important factors in the final struggle for life, individual as well as social. We have here abundant evidences that we find in race and heredity the determining factors and the upward or downward course of mankind. And the field of statistical research, sentiment, prejudice, or the influence of preconceived ideas have no place. The data which has been brought here together in a convenient form speak for themselves. From the standpoint of the impartial investigator, no difference of interpretation of their meaning seems possible. The decrease in the rate of increase in the colored population, in other words, here we go. I was talking about population last night in Kelly Miller. So these people just wishing, it's almost satanic, wishing we all die off. We all need to just die, right? The decrease in the rate of increase in the covered population, remember the census, has been traced to the excessive mortality, which in turn has been traced to the inferior vital capacity. The mixture of the African with the white race has been shown to have seriously affected the longevity of the former and left as a heritage to future generations the poison of scrofula, tuberculosis, and most of all, syphilis. So it's like AIDS in blacks, syphilis in blacks, syphilis experiment. Wonder why they funded it? This was given to the Congress. This racial inferiority has, in turn, brought about a moral deterioration, like the blacks' undeserving poor, welfare queens, welfare kings, welfare to work. The shit never changes, just how they describe it. Again, the racial inferiority has in turn brought about the moral deterioration, such as rarely met in a civilized country at the present time. Already subject to an inordinate rate of mortality, especially from all the most destructive diseases. The sexual immorality prevailing between colored females and white males of a lower type, as well as between colored males and colored females, has also brought about a diminished power of vital resistance among the young, as is to be expected from the recognized fact that the death rate for illegitimate children is about twice that of children born in wedlock. As a general result, there's a diminished social and economic efficiency, which in the course of years must prove not only a most destructive factor in the progress of the colored race, but also in the progress, social as well as economic, of the white race brought under its influence. In other words, nasty, vile black people are a threat to white people. They just can't be in their ghettos getting their own little nasty freak on. Them freaking each other is going to make white people suffer. So white people have to check black people to keep them from fucking and having a great time, right? Even if some white folks are in on it, it's still black people's fault. Nothing is more clearly shown from this investigation than that the Southern black man at the time of emancipation was healthy in body and cheerful in mind. So slavery was good for black people. He neither suffered inordinately from disease nor from impaired bodily vigor. His industrial capacities as a laborer were not of a low order, nor was the condition of servitude such as to produce in him morbid conditions favorable to mental disease, suicide, or intemperance. What are the conditions 30 years after? The pages of this work give but one answer, an answer which is the most severe condemnation of the modern attempts of superior races to lift inferior races to their own elevated position, An answer so full of meaning that it would seem criminal indifference on the part of the civilized people to ignore it. In other words, it's a mistake to try to help black folks. They're so screwed up. Stop helping them. Let these people die. Don't let them have education. Deny them everything. Let them die off. You freed them. That was a mistake. Had you only kept them as slaves, they would be happy. Now they're using scientific language to say black folks are better off as slaves. In the plain language of the facts brought together, the colored race is shown to be on a downward grade, tending towards a condition in which matters will be worse than they are now, when disease will be more destructive, vital resistance still lower, when the number of births will fall below deaths, and the gradual extinction of the race will take place. This was presented before Congress. This is the foundation of our medical care programs to this day for Black people. Why there's opposition, this is a foundational document of what to be done about Black people. So we're going to be extinct. Neither religion nor education nor a higher degree of economic well being have been able to raise the race from a low and antisocial condition. So God can't save or change Black people. Education won't change or transform Black people. Throwing money at them won't. It just there's nothing you can do. Just cut their asses off and let Black people die. A condition really fostered by the very influence which it had asserted would soon raise the race to a place even more elevated than that of whites. So, in other words, the idea that something could be done to help Black people was a mistake. Helping Black people kills Black people. Giving Black people food, medicine, education, moral, ethical reform kills them. Just like they said to my mother, no food or drink by mouth for like 8 days. You know, you will die if you don't have water. Did you think I'd go with that? You know, hell no. My mom, she drank like a fish. I'm dead ass serious. It is not in the conditions of life, but in race and heredity that we find an explanation of the fact to be observed in all parts of the globe, in all times and among all people, namely the superiority of one race over another, and of the Aryan race over all. Okay. Nazism started and implemented in law and made policy was in America way before it reached Germany, because Germany had social welfare and health programs at this time. Okay, America doesn't have what Europe has as a means to kill us. To what must we attribute this superiority? To what inherent traits must we attribute the marvelous conquest of nations by the Aryan race? I cannot do better than to quote from the work of Mr. Morris, who defines in admirable manner and the essential differences between the four most important races. Quote, if the Negro is indolent, both physically and mentally, so the Black person's no good physically and he's null and void upstairs. The Mongolian, energetic and physical but underdeveloped mentally, and the Melancroi, active physically and to some extent mentally. In the Aryan, we find a highly vigorous and developed mental activity, though by no means lacking in physical energy and mind, and is the ruling agent in this race. The muscular work is reduced to the lowest level, consistent with the demands of the body and the intellect, and every effort is made to limit the quantity of work, representing a fixed quantity of product. Waste labor is a crime to the Aryan mind. Use is the guiding principle in all efforts. It is in this ruling agency of the intellect over the energies of the muscular and active organism that we owe the superior quality. The restricted dimensions and the vast quantity of the Aryan labor products in his work, Pure Thought, is far more represented than pure labor. If we consider the Negro race, it is to find a lack of energy, both physical and mental. Nowhere in the region inhabited by this race do we perceive indications of high powers of either work or thought. No monuments of architecture appear. No philosophies or literatures have arisen. And in their present condition, they stand mentally at a very low level, while physically they confine themselves to labor absolutely necessary for existence. They neither work nor think above the lowest level of life needs. Even in America, under all the instigations of Aryan activity, the Negro race scarcely displays any voluntary energy, either of thought or work. It goes as far as the sharp whip of necessity drives, and looks upon indolence and sunshine as the terrestrial paradise. The white race has great physical vigor, capacity, and endurance. It has an intensity of will and a desire which is controlled by intellectuality. Great things are undertaken readily but not blindly. It manifests strong utilitarianism, united with a powerful imagination which elevates, ennobles, and idealizes its practical ideas. The Negro can only imitate, the Chinese can only utilize the work of the white, but the latter is abundantly able to produce new works. He has a keen sense of order as the yellow man, not from the love of repose, however, but from the desire to protect and preserve his acquisitions. He has a love of liberty far more intense than exists in the black or yellow races, and clings to life more earnestly. His high sense of honor is a faculty unknown to other races and springs from an exalted, sentiment of which shows no indications. His sensations are less intense than either the yellow or black, but his mentality is far more developed and energetic. Thus, the Aryan stands as a type of intellectual man, the central outcome of the races in which the special condition of dark and light, north and south, emotional and practical, have mingled and combined to the highest, noblest states of mind and body. This is from Morris's a book called The Aryan Race, Its Origin and Achievements. There's a footnote here. Even so highly developed of the type of mind as that of the Negro, submitted to, has been in the millions of individual cases of close contact with the minds of the most progressive type, and enjoying as many as thousands of individual cases of all the advantages of liberal education, has never, so far as I can ascertain, executed one single stroke of original work in any single department of intellectual activities. So they're saying that black folks, with all this exposure to white people, with no excuses, are complete failures. In other words, the Aryan race is possessed of all the essential characteristics that make for success in the struggle for higher life, and the contrast with other races, which lack either one or the other of the determining qualities. The statement, so far reaching, must needs have a considerable body of facts in its support. And the whole history of human effort is witness to the fact that no other race, since the Aryan appeared on the scene, has, in the end, been able to resist the onward march of its progressive civilization. Here, in the contrast between white and colored races, we have the most complete historical proof of historical proof of racial superiority, a superiority extending into all the intricate and complex phenomenon of life. Wherever the white man has gone, he's become the master of the conditions of life. The whole history of the Anglo-Saxon conquest and colonization is one endless proof of race superiority and race supremacy. In countries where the very forces of nature were at first against him, he has, after years of struggle, gained his end and mastered the conditions of life surrounding him. That's why the environment's screwed up everywhere. Way to go. It has been shown in his work how the mortality of the white troops in the West Indies has gradually decreased during the past 70 years. It may not be out of place to give a few additional facts. I have abbreviated in the table below. I give some of the most important statistics bearing on the question of the ability of the white troops to live in the tropics. Here we have four large sections. For a very long period, experienced the British and Dutch armies in the East and the West Indies. Without exception, the fall in death rate has been very great. It is immaterial for our present purpose to know what causes this diminishing mortality may be due. We have here merely to consider the fact that those countries are no longer a white man's grave. Were not the conditions of life extremely unfavorable to the white race in these countries in the early part of the century? Is not the climate the same, the heat still as oppressive, the jungle still as malarious, and the life in itself still as totally different from the life at home? Are not the statistics proof that the white race must have been able to master the unfavorable conditions of life in order to have made possible such enormous reductions in the death rates? Even if it is admitted in certain sections it is not as yet possible for the white race to increase and multiply. It is not proof of a superior vitality to have been able to make at least a stationary condition possible at the present time, and it will be doubted that there were much as has been accomplished. The race will be able to improve its conditions still further, to adapt itself more completely to the prevailing conditions, and thanks to superior race traits and consequent moral, intellectual, and economic superiority, in the end will become the absolute master of the conditions of life, even in what were formerly considered the most fatal regions of the earth. Let us consider one experiment of this kind: the colonization of Algeria. The French did genocide. They killed 50% of the Algerian population. Just want to say that because it'll make it look nice. Let us consider one experiment of this kind. The colonization of Algeria by the France was most bitterly opposed 50 years ago. In numerous instances, the claim was made that never under any circumstances could the French population become so acclimated that it would increase and multiply. Major Tulloch, who wrote extensively on the mortality of the white race in the tropics during the first 50 years of the present century, and a paper on the mortality of Her Majesty's troops in the colonies, speaks of the colonization of Algiers as follows. To ascertain the races of men best fitted to inhabit and develop the resources of different colonies is a most important inquiry, and one which has hitherto attracted too little attention, both in this and in other countries. Had the government of France, for instance, adverted to absolute impossibility of any population increasing or keeping up its numbers under an annual mortality of 7%, being that to which the settlers are exposed at Algiers, it would have never entered into the wild speculation of cultivating the soil of Africa by Europeans, nor have wasted hundreds of millions sterling, with no other result than the loss of 100,000 men who have fallen victims to the climate of that country. And such questions, military returns properly organized, properly digested, afford one of the most useful guides to direct the policy of the colonial legislator. They point out the limits intended by nature for particular races and within which alone they can thrive and increase. What are the facts of subsequent experience? Was ultimate failure the result of the struggle of the white race against such unfavorable conditions of life? Algeria became a colony of France in 1837 when the last provinces were conquered. Nearly 7 years had passed since the first attempt was made to conquer the territory. During this time, 6,592 persons of French descent had settled in the new colony. The total European population this year was 16,770. Exclusive of the military force, nearly 20 years later, or 9 years after Tulloch wrote his essay against colonization, the population of the French descent had increased largely, of the course, by immigration to 92,750. 20 years later, that is, by the year 1876, the French population numbered 156,365, while the last census, 1890, the number had increased to 271,101. During the same period of other races, most of all of the Spanish had settled in Nigeria were increasing at a rapid rate. From 5,189 Spanish settlers in 1837, the population of Spanish descent increased to 151,859 by the year 1891. The Jews, who numbered 6,065 in 1837, increased to 21,048 by the year 1856, and to 47,564 by 1891. Only the Germans, who numbered 782 in 1837 and 5,400 in 1856, had shown a tendency to decrease in population, numbering only 3,189 at the census of 1891. Thus, it is clearly shown that those races which Mr. Tulloch concluded could not possibly survive early unfavorable conditions of life a half century later had increased partly by immigration, but in no small part by natural increase to a total European population of nearly 500,000. And only 40 years later, Mr. Playfair, British counsel, could say, "Who shall estimate the gain of humanity by the transformation of the nest of pirates and robbers into the beautiful colony which Algeria now is? The enormous mortality of the early years has long since decreased, and today births exceed deaths, year after year, with favorable tendency upwards." Let me see. I want to skip something. Yes, I want to do the last part of this because some of this doesn't pertain to us. I want to keep us focused on us. I want to read the last part of this. In the words of Dr. Holden, venereal disease prevail in any tribe, exactly that degree in which men and women of that tribe have ceased to be chaste and faithful in wedlock. And further, tribes who have been isolated or who have held aloof from the whites retain their tribal relations and declared for non-intercourse are chaste and free from taint. Tribes who have opened their arms to receive the white man or who have been seduced by him have been debauched and inaugurated. inoculated. The plain and emphatic condemnation of intercourse between unlike races or attempt at their amalgamation and violation of the law of similarity is supported in the table before us, which shows that while tribes have little or no illicit intercourse with the white race, are holding their own or making slight gains in population. Those who have opened their arms, it should be their legs, to the white race to receive the white man have decreased to nearly half their number during the short period. Hence, the decrease in the Indian population is due to the rapid decrease among certain tribes, while others are holding their own or are gaining slowly year by year. These instances are the result of intimate contact of the lower races with the much higher degree of culture and morality will suffice to show the preponderating influence of race in the struggle for life. Given the same condition of life for two races, the one of Aryan descent will prove the superior solely on the account of its ancient inheritance of virtue and transmitted qualities which are determining factors in the struggle for race supremacy. The lower races, even under the same conditions of life, must necessarily fail because the vast number of incapables which a hard struggle for life has eliminated from the ranks of the white race are still forming a large body of the lower races. Easy conditions of life and liberal charity are among the most destructive influences affecting the lower races, since by such methods the weak are incapable of permitted an increase to multiply while the struggle of the more able is increased in severity. The two essential virtues of modern progress are self-reliance and chastity, have not the result of easy conditions of life and have not been the results of easy conditions of life. Self-reliance of the Anglo-Saxon race is a result of the struggle of ages rather than of book education or missionary efforts. No missionary, educator, or philanthropist extended aid or comfort to the English peasant class during its darkest days, to the early settlers on the coast of New England, or the pioneer in the forests of the far west. History is replete with instances of men of mark emerging from the most unfortunate conditions of life, but it is extremely rare to find a case where easy conditions of life or liberal charity, health care, right, people? This is when Hull House and Jane Addams and all these other people. Easy conditions of life or liberal charity have assisted man in his upward struggle. Self-reliance in man and chastity in woman are qualities that must be developed, and thus far they have not been developed by the aid of charity or liberal philanthropy. A study of race traits and tendencies of the Negro in America makes plain the failure of modern education and other means in encouraging or permitting the development of these most important factors without which no race has ever been able to gain a permanent civilization. Black people are not civilizable. Easy conditions of life, a liberal construction of doctrine of forgiveness of sins, an unwarranted extension of the principle of the state, or private interference in the conduct of individual life. In other words, stopping people from lynching and killing black people and getting in folks' business. What folks have never raised a race or an individual from the lower or higher plane. On the contrary, the world's failures are largely those of races and individuals whose existence in the struggle for higher life had practically come to an end. For carrying on the chief objects of our life on earth, very little what was now called civilization is really wanted. And unfortunately, it is just the useless adjuncts to civilization that the lower races in their contacts with the higher races first acquire. The downward tendencies of the colored race, therefore, can only be arrested by the radical and far-reaching changes in their moral nature. Instead of clamoring for aid and assistance from the white race, the Negro himself should sternly refuse every offer of direct interference in his own evolution. The more difficult his upward struggle, the more enduring will be the qualities developed. Most of all, there must be a more general recognition of the institution of monogamic marriage and unqualified reprobation of those who violate the law of sexual morality. Intercourse with the white race must absolutely cease, and race purity must be insisted upon in marriage as well as outside of it. Together with higher morality will come a greater degree of economic efficiency, and with the predominating trait of the white race of virtue and thrift will follow the natural consequence of the mastery by the colored race of his own conditions of life. The compensation of such an independent struggle will be a race of people who will gain a place among civilized mankind and will increase and multiply instead of dying out with loathsome diseases. The day is not far distant when, in the words of Mr. Kidd, the last thing our civilization is likely to permanently tolerate is the wasting of resources of the richest nation on earth through the lack of elementary qualities of social efficiency in the races possessing them. When will the ever increasing white population has reached its stage where new conquests are necessary? It will not hesitate to make war on those races who prove themselves useless factors in the progress of mankind. A race may be interesting, gentle, and hospitable, but if it's not a useful race, and the common acceptation of that term, it is only a question of the time when a downward course must take place. All the facts brought together in this work prove that the colored population is gradually parting with the virtues and the moderate degree of economic efficiency developed under the regime of slavery. All the facts prove that a low standard of sex morality is the main underlying cause of the low and antisocial condition of the race at the present time. All the facts prove that education, philanthropy, and religion have failed to develop a higher appreciation of the stern, uncompromising virtues of the Aryan race. The conclusion is warranted that it is merely a question of time when the actual downward course, that is, a decrease in the population, will take place. In the meantime, however, the presence of the colored population is a serious hindrance to the economic progress of the white race. Instead of making the race more independent, modern educational and philanthropic efforts have succeeded in making it more dependent on the white race at the present time than it was previous to emancipation. It remains to be seen how far the knowledge of these facts about its own diminishing vitality, low state of morality, and economic efficiency will stimulate the race to adopting a higher standard. Unless a change takes place, a change will strike it at the fundamental errors that underlie the conduct of higher races towards the lower. Gradual extinction is only a question of time. Hitler called them useless eaters. This is what is being said. The same sexual deviance in the Nuremberg laws of Germany copied America's Jim Crow laws. Hitler is an American copy. Nazism is German white supremacy. They call it National Socialism. We call it white supremacy. But the end result is dead black or people perceived to be non-white. How do you guys like Mr. Hoffman? How do you like that? This reads like that. Now, let me pull out another thing because I want y'all to understand this isn't my conjecture. And then I'm going to get to some religious stuff. What time is this? Oh, wow, it's 12. I'm going to mess around a little bit in this book and then I'm going to see. And if I stop, I got to go and do a funeral tomorrow. We'll pick back up there. I want to hear more about Nazis. Do y'all like the Nazis? Oh, look at this. Bitch ass King Jamie, racist ass person. Look at them. Get the fuck off my channel. Racist ass people. Get off my channel. Get all your racist asses off here. Mhm. Moderators don't ever tolerate racial comments from people. Anybody come, I don't go into white folks' spaces. I'm reading the bastards' document, and they're saying it's conjecture. These people are satanic, and this is why I'm telling you there's a link between Satanism and white racism and Nazism. These are all neo pagan, demonic religions, and we're the human sacrifice of it. This is the reason I'm having this inquiry. And I could care less if people don't like it. Um, these folks are Satanists. They're going to go to hell, but I would say this to you: don't let any of them bother you. I'm not an advocate for violence, but I tell you, have all the firearms and bullets that you need. If folks can't respect you, make them fear you. I don't want to put my hand on anybody. I don't want you to put your hand on anybody. I believe in the golden rule. But anybody that tries to do something to you because of what you look like deserves what they get. And if enough of us start saying we're not going to be treated poorly, right, we'll get somewhere. But get off my channel if you're racist. I don't want you. I don't go to a white supremacist. I used to, but I never made comments. I would just listen to what they had to say. If they think that black people are monkeys or they're subhuman, okay, that's what they think. I don't agree. And why are monkeys paying taxes? Why are monkeys fighting the military for the country that you think only you should be in? Why doesn't your ass go and die in Yemen and Iran and Iraq? You're so proud of America. Why don't you go and get blown up in Afghanistan? Why don't you go down to the border and fight the illegals? Why did you bitch ass white folks let the Venezuelans punk you and racist ass Colorado that is full of white hate groups? You know why you did it? Because you bastards are cowards. You don't mind massacring black folks in a church or a grocery store. But these people that don't mind killing you and coming after your families, like you do black people, you fear what you've done to us happening to you. And you must have a death wish. All of the Nazis out there, I'm not speaking to everybody, but the people like that obviously want done to them what they've been doing to other people. Otherwise, you would leave people alone. I don't bother people. I have neighbors of all sorts of races. I'm polite to them. They pay for a house, they have a right to live here. I won't bother them. They shouldn't bother me. I don't take from them. I don't insult them. They shouldn't insult me. That makes sense to me. Someone that can't abide with that, you deserve what you get. I had this wonderful book that they use for school, and I want to share. This is just a short read here, and it's going to be much easier language because it's for younger people. Man, these old people love these difficult words, man. And I want to see if I can go through. I'm going to just do a couple of pages of this, but this is just like a primer. It's a real interesting book. It's called Race and Membership in American History, the Eugenics Movement. And it's a resource book by Facing History and Ourselves. Unlike the little idiots that came on that want to fuss and stir stuff up like I care about them. I don't want to go back and forth. I'm not Tariq Nasheed. I love Tariq Nasheed. I don't want to argue with the racists. I want you to go and hang with Nazis. Segregate yourself and be with people that you like and hate me somewhere else, but don't think I'm going to give time to you. This is called Race and Membership in American History. I think you can get it inexpensively on Amazon. and I'll post this in the chat. Okay, I'll type this up. I'm going to read a few because it connects to the Nazis. And so you heard what he said. This isn't me. I never heard of this person until this year. This is learning. My God, people from other countries coming here telling folks to kill us. I would never think to go somewhere and tell anyone anything other than visit, get along with people, eat the food, learn the people, right? Who am I to tell people who has to? These folks, they have a satanic God complex. Yes, they do. And what happens with that is ultimately someone's going to come along and stomp the shit out of these people. I do not want that, but something, or natural disaster. I don't want that. We live here. I don't want America to go down. I don't want. I want peace. These people feel like their time is up. They're desperate. I just saw there's a poll that said white men feel oppressed. You come on and attack someone on their channel, and he's oppressed. Their morality is so satanic. They pull a gun and shoot you and say you shot them because they need to be good. Okay, I need to be justified in shooting you, or you're subhuman, you're Satan seed, you're a curse of ham, you're a monkey, whatever. So that way, I'm not a rotten ass human being that happens to be white. I'm a good white person preserving history. Doing the Germans learned in Russia, and they killed a whole bunch of Nazis. And I'm just telling you, these people, they're doing stuff. And let me see. I'm going to put this up here, and I hope you guys bless the channel. Are y'all going to send me a few coins? I need to buy a few more of these books. I need to buy some more stuff, and that's sort of what I'm doing. And I'm sorry that I haven't been able to do this more. I miss sharing this. I hope people are learning something. I am trying to share. My teachers didn't teach me this. I'm going to post this up here. Moderators, and the chapter I'm in is chapter 8. So you'll know exactly where it is. It's chapter 8, and it's called The Nazi Connection. There's a direct link between Nazi Germany, the United States. People in the United States and Great Britain funded Hitler. The United States and Great Britain funded Hitler. Hitler was a student of America. Hitler was a student of America. Hitler admired Thomas Jefferson. Hitler got the idea of sending the Jews to Madagascar from the American idea of sending black people back to Africa. Madagascar is an island off the coast of Africa. It's considered Africa. Hitler was not the first person to think about sending people to Africa. This was something of Anglo-Saxons in England and Anglo-Saxons in America. I've already explained to you what that was. Not my opinion. I could care less. I want to read this Nazi Connection. Then I'm going to get to the heavy book. And then I'm going to bring the stuff to the religion. I'm going to try to get through this. Let's see if I can do this until about 1 or 2:30. Okay. Nazi Connection. It starts off with a quote by the anthropologist Franz Boas. He's the creator of the concept called relativity. Not a completely good guy. Franz Boas defended a white gentleman by the name of Herman Benelat Moens, who allegedly raped 5,000 black girls here in Washington, D.C. It's in a document in the Smithsonian thing. They may have lost it. I've seen it. I wrote a paper about it. I'd find it one day. Just telling you what I know. Herman Moens, if anyone wants that, you can always write me. You can always I'll always point you to a document. I don't necessarily like my opinions. It's an educated opinion. Nazi Connection. Eugenics is not a panacea that will cure human ills. It is rather a dangerous sword that may turn its edge against those who rely on it for strength. When Francis Galton founded the eugenics movement, he hoped that his new branch of scientific inquiry would someday become an international movement. By the early 1900s, his dream was becoming a reality. There were now eugenicist nations around the world. The movement was particularly popular in the United States and Germany. Many Americans were intrigued at the notion of a panacea that will cure human ills. One of the ills is black people, right? They found it all too easy to believe that scientists and politicians could work together to solve social problems by mandating racial segregation, sterilizing the feeble minded, and closing the nation's borders to inferior hordes of degenerate peoples. After all, they reasoned that such laws were supported by research and endorsed by scholars at leading universities. Critics of eugenics were mostly ignored, like Kelly Miller, and the nation led the world in eugenics research, the United States was the leader of this racial genocidal madness. White America is to blame collectively. Okay, you want to be all the patriots and everything is you, then you guys are the ones that came up with this crap as a collective. It's your fault, all of you. Same way we get profiled. We're profiling you. Historically, you're guilty. Although Germans were also flattered at the idea of belonging to a superior race, few expressed interest in the movement until after World War I, meaning that America was the engine. What happens after World War I is the rise of who? Hitler. Bitter and angry at the nation's losses, many looked for someone to blame. Some turned against the Jews and other racial enemies. Others directed their anger towards the useless eaters who stayed at home while the nation's finest young men were murdered on the battlefields. Oh, by the way, white men who were destroyed in the Civil War, they blamed black people for all the white men that died. That's part of the stuff. We're still being punished for the Civil War. And their efforts to protect the race by breeding the best with the best. These Germans found inspiration and encouragement in the eugenics movement. By the 1920s, German and American eugenicists were working side by side on a variety of research projects. Eugenics also influenced the thinking of political leaders in both nations. Throughout the early 1900s, eugenics had the support of American presidents and lawmakers. In Germany, it was central to the programs advocated by Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party. When Hitler came to power in 1933, he used eugenic principles to build a racial state. Ironically, he applied those principles to German life at a time when scientific discoveries were undercutting both eugenics and racism. Jacob Lanzmann, an American critic of eugenics, summarized the new insight in the mid-1930s. Quote, "It is not true that boiler washers, engine hostlers, miners, janitors, and garbage men who have large families are necessarily idiots and morons. It is not true that celebrated individuals necessarily beget celebrated offspring, or that idiotic individuals necessarily beget idiotic children. It is not true that because the color of the guinea pig is transmissible in accordance with the Mendelian theory, therefore human mental traits must also be. It is not true by any known scientific test that there is a Nordic race or that the so-called Nordic race is superior to any other race." Lanzmann may have added that it was also not true that sterilizing the unfit will end or even reduce social problems. Yet most people in the United States and Germany were unaware that Landsman and a number of other scientists no longer considered eugenics scientific. Although eugenicists were eager to share their views and influence legislation and social policy, few other scientists were willing to speak out on the issues of the day, sort of like the jab. Their silence had real consequences. This chapter raises important questions about the relationship between science and society at a time when Hitler was determined to annihilate the Jews and other racial minorities. And reflecting on that relationship in 1939, United States Vice President Henry Wallace asked, "Under what conditions will scientists deny the truth and pervert his science to serve the slogans of tyranny? Under what conditions are the great numbers of men willing to surrender all hope of individual freedom and become ciphers of the state? How can these conditions be prevented from occurring in our country?" Many of the readings in this chapter explore the ways scientists, political leaders, and ordinary citizens answered those questions from the 1930s and 40s. And the early 1900s were years of unrest throughout the world. Economic dislocation, global war, fear of international communist revolution, and by the early 30s, a worldwide depression threatened stability everywhere. With uncertainty came doubts, convinced that democracy had failed. Some turned to communism, others were attracted to fascism. The fascists insisted that democracy put selfish individual interests before the needs of the nation. They placed their faith in a leader who stood above politics. In 1922, Benito Mussolini established the world's first fascist government in Italy. It would later serve as a model for the one Adolf Hitler set up in Germany. And both nations, the word of the leader or Führer was law. He was a dictator, a leader who was not dependent on legislature, courts, or voters. According to Hitler, a Führer or a Duce, that's the Italian, is a leader in whose name everything is done, who is said to be responsible for all, but whose acts can nowhere be called into question because he is the genius or the hero conceived as a man of the pure race. Both Mussolini and Hitler maintain only a few men are intelligent enough to rise in the world, and that those men have an obligation to rule. In their view, decision making was too important to be left to the people. These ideas were attractive to a number of eugenicists throughout the 1920s. Many of them traveled to Rome to meet with Mussolini. At one meeting in 1929, Charles Davenport, then the president of the International Federation of Eugenic Organizations, and Eugen Fischer, a noted German eugenicist at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Anthropology, Human Heredity, and Eugenics, honored Mussolini. Davenport explained why they did so. Quote, "The gravest concern of all eugenicists today is the preservation of human quality. It is a possibility, and in the view of the tremendous importance for the future of every nation of this objective, no economic sacrifice can be too great. The sacrifices, however, would not be very considerable. Here, it is only possible to suggest how suitable measures in the sphere of property and income tax, and yet more certainly the inheritance tax, can be brought to bear on maintaining families of talent in every social strata. Such measures, however, should be fitted to the social position of the family and favor those who have arrived at a high position and require that it be so graded to the social rank attained that the best receive the greatest knowledge. Such suggestions may sound an antisocial and may sound an antisocial and anti-democratic note. It must be therefore be borne in mind that each stratum in turn supplies its quota of those favored individuals who have attained social distinction, and the protection and advantages have to do with the family rather than the individual. That family, giving to the state children from amongst whose future leaders can be chosen. Thus, every such attempt, in the truest sense of the word, one concerns res publica, the highest sense democratic. Such administrative and legislative means are without doubt at hand, and can for each country be formulated by the forces in eugenics in such a way that legislators can make use of them, close quote. Eugenicists held their first international conference in London in 1912. It was an appropriate place for a meeting devoted to race improvement. After all, Britain was the home of Francis Galton and the place where the eugenics movement began. Yet it was the Americans, not the British, who took the center stage at the conference. Delegates from other nations were impressed by the gains the United States had made in protecting the race. Between 1907 and 1912, 8 states had passed laws authorizing or requiring the sterilization of certain classes of defectives and degenerates, and several others were considering similar legislation. American eugenicists also boasted of financial backing from private foundations and public agencies. Notwithstanding the years that followed the convention, Americans took over the leadership of the International Congress of Eugenics. The first president was an Englishman, Leonard Darwin, the son of Charles Darwin, and a cousin of Francis Galton. The second and third presidents were American, Henry F. Osborne and Charles Davenport. Even before a meeting, many European eugenicists were closely following the events in the United States. The Germans were particularly interested in the American experience. In Germany, eugenics was known as racial hygiene. Alfred Ploetz, the founder of the movement, was a physician who believed that the government were allowing the least fit in society to survive at the expense of the fittest. To address the problem, he advocated a new kind of hygiene, one that promoted health not only of the individual but also of the race. Throughout the early 1900s, Ploetz and followers organized meetings dedicated to race improvement, published journals that promoted eugenics, and built formal and informal relationships with like-minded scholars at home and abroad. In 1905, they founded the Society for Racial Hygiene. A few years after the first international conference in London, the Berlin branch of the society distributed a brochure lauding the dedication with which American sponsors research in the field of racial hygiene, with which they translate theoretical knowledge into practice. The document also praised the nation's fantastic control of immigration through restrictive laws and applauded the American states that had statutes to keep inferior families from having children. The brochure ended with the question, can we have any doubts that the Americans will reach their aim, the stabilization and improvement of the strength of the people? The unspoken question was, would Germans do the same? Gesa van Hoffman, an Austrian diplomat based in California in the early 1900s, provided the society with much of the information about the American eugenics movement. During his stay in the United States, he wrote numerous articles, and in 1913, a book on the topic. He was not the only German to look to the United States for lessons on applying eugenics to public policy. In the early 1900s, German medical authorities gathered information about state laws that banned marriages if one partner was alcoholic, feeble-minded, insane, or suffered from such diseases as tuberculosis or syphilis. The Reich Health Office even kept a special file on such laws. As more states passed eugenic laws, the file grew. So did the number of Germans who visited the United States to observe eugenics in action, and the number of books by American eugenicists that were translated into the German language. By the time World War I began, Americans had established their leadership in the eugenics movement and laid the foundation for international cooperation. After the war ended, eugenicists on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean were eager to reestablish their ties and forge new links. The war had convinced many Germans of the importance of racial hygiene. They feared that the nation had lost its best young men on the battlefield while the unfit were protected at home. In Germany, medical care was under government control. Therefore, taxpayers provided the money for the care of the physically and mentally disabled. The economic crises of the 1920s and 1930s in Germany added to many people's sense of outrage. These Germans insisted that the cost of supporting the unfit was a growing burden on the entire nation. American eugenicists encouraged Germans' interest in finding biological solutions to the nation's problems. Charles Davenport led the effort by working to reintegrate Germany into the international eugenics movement despite resistance from many of Germany's opponents in World War I. At the same time, he promoted research with his German counterparts on a variety of projects. In 1921, Fritz Lenz, Eugen Fischer, and Erwin Bauer published a two-volume work entitled Outline of Human Genetics and Racial Hygiene. Reviewers hailed the work as a masterpiece and the best traditions of German scholarship. Revised and updated every few years, the work shaped the medical thinking of Germany and provided scientific legitimacy for Adolf Hitler's National Socialist or Nazi Party. Indeed, the publisher sent Hitler a copy of the 1923 edition. He read it during the year he spent in prison for attempted overthrow of the German government. Later, in reviewing Mein Kampf, Hitler's own account of his political beliefs about German racial superiority and his dreams of building a new German empire, Fritz Lenz noted with pride that Hitler had borrowed many of his ideas. Throughout their work, three authors acknowledge American leadership in the eugenics movement. They repeatedly cite research by American scholars as Harry Goddard, that was chapter 3, Charles Davenport, chapter 3, Carl Brigham, chapter 5, Louis Terman, chapter 5. Lenz, in particular, insisted that there were no differences between the positions taken by American and German eugenicists. Both were accustomed to thinking biologically, although Germany lagged behind in the application of eugenics to public policy. He was confident as eugenic education proceeded in Germany, eugenic laws would follow. Throughout the 1920s and 30s, Lenz, Bauer, Fischer, and other German eugenicists worked closely with their American counterparts, especially Charles Davenport and Henry Laughlin at the Eugenics Records Office at Cold Spring Harbor, New York, and Paul Popenoe, a leader of the American Eugenics Society in California. A topic of manual interest was race crossing or miscegenation. In 1929, Davenport invited Eugen Fischer to speak on the subject of the Rome meeting of the International Federation of Eugenic Organizations. Fischer had been active in the German eugenics movement since the early 1900s. Trained as an anthropologist at Freiburg University, he had led a research team to what has been called the German colony of Southwest Africa, now Namibia. Let me remind you, they did mass murder and genocide of the people in Namibia, concentration camps and all of that before Jews. And by the way, some of the people that owned the diamond mines where the folks came in and mass killed those people that were Herero and Nama and other people, Ovumbandu people, if I'm getting the name right. There were certain Jewish companies there, just telling you. He arrived in 1909, shortly after German soldiers had murdered about 75% of the Herero people, children, women, and men. Fischer had little interest in this genocide. He focused instead on the offspring of marriages between Dutchmen and Herero women, the so-called Rehoboth bastards. Despite the fact that their parents were legally married, Fischer measured their heads, took blood samples, and then compared the results with similar measurements taken from the surviving Hereros. Claiming that the children of the so-called mixed marriages were of lesser racial quality, he insisted that their intellectual achievements were directly related to the amount of European blood in their veins. In 1913, he concluded without exception every European people that has accepted blood from inferior races and the fact that the Negroes, Hottentots, and many others are inferior can be denied only by dreamers, has suffered an intellectual and cultural decline as a result of acceptance of inferior elements. Fisher's research led to his appointment as a director of the department of the newly established Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Anthropology, Eugenics, and Human Heredity just after the war. It had the backing of the Rockefeller Foundation of New York, which supported a number of other eugenics research institutes in Germany in the 1920s. At the official opening of the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, Fisher and his colleagues invited Charles Davenport to speak. Honored by the invitation, Davenport used the occasion to promote further research on the eugenic consequences of miscegenation. In 1928, researchers at the Davenport's Eugenics Records Office in New York and the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Berlin prepared a questionnaire for distribution to 1,000 physicians, missionaries, and diplomats around the world. They hoped to gather data on the effects of race mixing. Davenport and Fisher also formed a committee on race crossing within the IFEO. Fritz Lynch chaired the group and urged further research on intermarriages with Jews. Despite their scholarly achievements, German eugenicists in the 1920s encountered strong religious and social opposition whenever they tried to translate their research into public policy. After the United States Congress passed the 1924 Origins Act, Chapter 7, a Bavarian health inspector wistfully noted the German racial hygienists should learn from the United States how to restrict the influx of Jews and Eastern and Southern Europeans. The law won praise from Adolf Hitler, who praised the act for its exclusion of undesirables on the basis of hereditary illness and race. When Hitler came to power in 1933, Lentz hailed him as the first politician of truly great import who had taken racial hygiene as a serious element in state policy. He and other German eugenicists saw Hitler's rise as an opportunity to make their nation the first in world history to apply the principles of race, genetics, and selection into practical politics. Although Lentz and others initially expressed some reservation about Hitler's anti-Semitism, they actively supported the new regime. They wrote essays in a book in defense of Nazi policies, took an active role in designing eugenic laws and decrees, and then helped the Nazis implement those measures. In 1938, Theodor Mollison, the director of the Anthropological Institute in Munich, defended their support for Hitler in a letter to Franz Boas, a critic of the eugenics movement in general and the Nazis in particular. Quote, "If you think that we scientists do not agree with the cry, 'Hail Hitler,' then you are very much mistaken. If you would take a look at today's Germany, you would see that progress is being made in this Third Reich, progress that would have never come to pass under the previous regime, habituated as it was to idleness and feeding the unemployed instead of giving them work. The claim that scientific thought is not free in Germany is absurd. I assure you that we German scientists know well the things for which we may thank Adolf Hitler, not the least of which is the cleansing of our people from the foreign racial element whose manner of thinking is not our own. With the exception of those few individuals with ties with the Jewish or Masonic groups, we scientists support wholeheartedly the salute, Heil Hitler." In 1930, Carl Brigham, wrote an article in which he retracted many of the conclusions he reached in the study of American intelligence. Comparative studies of various national and racial groups may not be made with existing texts, he now argued. He went on to state that one of the most pretentious of these comparative racial studies was the writer's own was without foundation. Why do you think Lentz, Bauer, and Fisher ignored Brigham's retraction when they revised their book in the 1930s? I'm going to skip that. Hold on. I'm on ideas have consequences. And I don't know if I want to do that. Throughout the 1930s, Hitler advanced plans to turn Germany into a racial state. When an action turned against an individual group or even a nation resulted in opposition, he quickly backed down. If he encountered little or no opposition, he was a little bolder the next time. Yet after Hitler's defeat, many people expressed a surprise that he did exactly what he promised to do. How do you account for their surprise? On September 15th, 1935, the Nazis took another step towards protecting the Aryan blood from contamination. This time they moved against the nation's Jews and other racial enemies. It was not the Nazis' first anti Jewish measure. They proclaimed 42 such laws in 1933 and 19 more in 1934. The new laws, which Hitler announced at a party rally in Nuremberg, provided the rationale for early legislation. The first of these laws defined citizenship. Hmm. Let me read one of these laws. Hmm. In the summer of 1935, eugenicists, anthropologists, and population scientists, and eugenicists from all over the world, geneticists all over the world, traveled to Berlin, Germany, to take part in the International Congress for Population Science. Two Americans served as vice presidents of the conference, Henry Laughlin and Clarence Campbell. Although Laughlin was unable to attend, he wrote a paper for the conference and sent an exhibit consisting of 12 charts and publications that illustrated how the United States applied biological principles to its immigration policies. Campbell not only attended, but also publicly praised Nazi racial policies. He told delegates, the leader of the German Hitler, Adolf Hitler, ably supported by the nation's anthropologists, eugenicists, and social philosophers, has been able to construct a comprehensive racial policy of population development and improvement that promises to be epochal in racial history. It sets a pattern which other nations and other racial groups must follow if they do not wish to fall behind in their racial quality, in their racial accomplishment, and their prospects for survival. It is true that these ideas have met stout opposition in the social philosophy, which bases its whole social and political theory upon the patent fallacy of human equality. But human thought has not stood entirely still since the 18th century. There is a decided tendency in the enlightened minds no longer to place implicit faith and the rhetorical principles which have no foundation in facts and to explore the realities of nature. Any patriotism worthy of the name carries with it a willingness on the part of individuals not only to cooperate with common interests, but to sacrifice individualistic terms and submit themselves to the discipline and the ultimate interest of the group. A population group which is racially uniform and has no racially alien elements which serve to confuse, obstruct, and defeat its racial objectives will always tend to be unified in its racial objectives, as well as having a high survival value and prospects. On his return to the United States, Campbell complained that the anti Nazi propaganda with which all countries have been flooded has gone on to obscure the correct understanding of the great importance of a German race policy. Like a number of American eugenicists, Campbell dismissed reports of brutality towards Jews as Jewish propaganda at the time when the Nazis' campaigning against the Jews was intensified. Even as Campbell defended the Nazis, thousands of Jews were desperately trying to leave the country. Some found sanctuary in various European countries, others were unable to find a place to live. Everywhere they turned, they encountered barriers not only from Germany but from other nations. Hitler was eager to have the Jews leave the country as long as they left their money behind. Few countries, however, were willing to accept thousands of penniless Jewish refugees. Barriers to enter the United States were especially high in 1929. Congress amended its National Origins Act to limit the number of immigrants that could enter the nation in a single year to 153,774. Each had to be in good health and of good character. Immigrants also had to prove that they were not likely to become a public charge. Initially, American officials interpreted this to mean that the family had enough money to tide them over until the adults found work, about $100, a considerable sum in the 1930s. Every country had a number based on the 2% of the total number of immigrants from that country living in the United States. As a result, 83,575 places were set aside for immigrants from Britain and Ireland. Germany had 26,000 places, Poland 6, Italy 5,500, France 3,000, Romania 300. In 1930, in the midst of the Great Depression, President Herbert Hoover instructed the State Department to issue visas only to applicants who were unlikely to ever become a public charge. The government officials interpreted that order to mean the family had to have at least $10,000. As a result, immigration dropped sharply. Nearly 242,000 immigrants entered the United States in 1930. The number fell to 97,139 in 1931 and to 35,576 in 1932, the year before Hitler came to power. Of the 63,000 Jews that fled Germany between 1933 and 34, almost 6,514 were able to enter the United States. In contrast, France, a much smaller nation that was also in the midst of the Great Depression, accepted 30,000 Jewish refugees. Even as the United States was raising an amount of money for immigrants needed to enter the nation, the Nazis were decreasing the amount Jews could take out of Germany. In January 1933, a Jew was allowed to take out as much as 10,000 in cash. The amount was reduced to 6,000, next to 4,000, then to 800, and then finally, October 1934, $4 per immigrant. In the early 1930s, violence against Jews and other racial minorities increased in Germany. Some Americans urged Congress to ease the restriction on immigration. They immediately encountered opposition led by John P. Trevor, the New York attorney who proposed the quota system in 1924. As head of the American Coalition of Patriotic Civil and Fraternal Society, he asked Henry Laughlin to prepare a report on the effects of easing restrictions. In his report, Laughlin urged Congress to offer no exceptional admission to Jewish refugees from Germany and no admission to anyone without a definite country to which he may be deported if the occasion demands, anyone whose ancestors were not all members of the white or Caucasian race. Laughlin suggested that Congress look upon the incoming immigrants not essentially as an offering asylum, nor in securing cheap labor, but primarily as sons-in-laws to marry their own daughters. In his view, immigrants are essentially breeding stock. Lawmakers agreed. Nazis rewarded American eugenicists whose work they admired. In 1936, Henry Laughlin of Eugenics Records Office received the following invitation from Carl Schneider, a professor of racial hygiene. The faculty of the University of Heidelberg intends to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Medicine by reason of honor on the occasion of the 550-year Jubilee, the 27th to the 30th of June, 1936. I should be grateful to you if you could inform me whether you are ready to accept the honorary doctor's degree and, if so, whether you would be able to come to Heidelberg to attend the ceremony of honorary promotion and personally receive your diploma. Laughlin promptly responded to the invitation. Quote, I stand ready to accept this very high honor. Its bestowal will give me a particular gratification, coming as it will from a university deep rooted in the life history of the German people, and a university that has both a reservoir and a fountain of learning for more than half a millennium. To me, this honor will be doubly valued because it will come from a nation which for many centuries nurtured human seed stock, which later founded my own country and thus gave the basic character of our present lives and institutions. I regret more than I can say the shortness of the time before the Jubilee date makes it impossible for me to arrange for me to leave my duties at Cold Spring to visit Heidelberg to participate in the ceremony and to receive this highly honored diploma in person. Laughlin received his honorary degree at the German consulate in New York City. No one knows exactly why he did not travel. He decided not to travel to Germany except to accept it. He may have been worried of an attack on the American press. The New York Times and other newspapers charged that Americans who traveled to Germany for such honors were being used as propaganda tools. Laughlin also may have feared the effects of the kind of criticism his relationship with the Carnegie Foundation, which was becoming more and more skeptical of his work. Despite the criticism and worries about funding, Laughlin's belief in immigration restriction and the value of the Nazis' eugenics policies remained unshaken. 2 years after he received the honorary degree, there was once again a move to allow Jewish refugees to enter the country. This time, the move was prompted by violence that swept Germany and Austria on the night of November 10th and 11th, 1938, Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, as it was later known. I'm going to stop here, but I want to say to you that America is deeply, deeply implicated in Nazism, and what is in America influences what has happened other places. Um, the bombs that killed the people in Palestine and Yemen and Iraq and Lebanon, the people being killed on the occupied territories, people that were killed in Libya, the people that were killed in Afghanistan, people that are victims of assassinations in places like Iran, the warfare that's going on in Ukraine, warfare in the Congo that has taken maybe 10 million lives, warfare going on in Sudan, North and South Sudan, Ethiopia, Eritrea, the situation in Haiti, instability across the Sahel from Sudan to the Gambia is deeply, deeply linked to racism, and American Nazism. And so I want to make a little transition, but I want to show you a couple of works. Let me see, it's one. I'm going to stop at two. And so I may have to pick this up tomorrow and I'll do the religion part, but I have this one. I will do the religion stuff tomorrow. I'm going to do religion tomorrow. I'm going to come back to this. But that because religion roots in America. I just want you to see the connection. I just want you to see the connection. And then tomorrow I'm going to come and hit this religion because a lot of stuff in church is bullshit. And I'm a Christian, but bullshit is bullshit. You know, bullshit is bullshit. Um, and I want to, I mentioned I had this book, and I'll read something of it. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow because I know this thing here is deep. But this is called Race and a Godless World, Atheism, Race, and Civilization, 1850 to 1914. I'm holding this up and I'll type it and put it in the chat. This book, when people like Frederick Douglass and the other people, Martin Delany, Alexander Crummell, Maria Stewart, Sojourner Truth, all these people that were talking about abolition, including the white folks, William Lloyd Garrison, Theodore Weld, for that matter, John Brown, all these people that were challenging slavery on a religious basis, defeated the religious supremacists. A lot of people, and they could no longer argue the Bible because these people were smarter than them. Then they went into science. Science became the place for people to hide because science, well, science is true, right? Used to be God's true in the Bible and all, but then they switched it. They moved the goalpost. But this book, let me type this up here. And so let me see. This guy's Nathan G. Alexander. And please like, support, retweet. Put this out here and pray to God. My health is good. My mom's health is good. So we can, I can do this because I enjoy sharing. This is called Race in the Godless World. And hold on. And y'all wonder why I talk about this God stuff. The people lost when folks were talking about God for real, especially when it was from the Bible thing, they lose. So these people would quickly leave the scriptures, which are very plain that everybody is a human being. Even if people don't like me, even if they hate me, no matter what people look like, white, black, whatever, we're a human family. We're brothers and sisters, even if we don't act like it, even if we don't want to be, even if we don't want to be. And I don't hate people that are white, and I accept like, oh, God, so much white family. It's just like God. It just doesn't make sense. I can't help where your ancestors come from. I'm not. I mean, again, I identify as black, and I'm halfly, so I wouldn't be anything else. I'm going to read the Inside Jack, and I'm going to come back to this tomorrow. That's why, in fact, this makes a good transition from the science and this racial stuff into the religion, because in America, they're a little more backwards. They're hiding behind supposedly the God of the Bible. Let me ask my friend. Let me ask him. You're not racist, are you, White Jesus? No, he's not racist. He loved me. I love him too. White Jesus is not hateful. These people stop lying. Stop it. Stop it. Don't lie on white Jesus. He loved everybody. Okay. The inside this. During the second half of the 19th century, popular atheist movements were emerging in the United States and Great Britain. These are the two countries making all of the money off of slavery. And they were losing. You have to remember something. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1950, right? They began to do all these things. You had the Gag Act of the late 1830s, where people were trying to shut down, prevent abolitionist literature. The abolitionist movement had jacked up the sugar thing that the English had. They had to start bringing people from India and growing sugar cane in South Africa and other places to make up for this goddamn abolitionist movement. People talking about God. Let me remind you, the two people who did the most to shake up, or maybe several people, but the key people who shook things up: Nat Turner, a Baptist minister; Sam Sharp, Nat Turner in Virginia; Sam Sharp, later in the same year, 1831, a black Baptist minister in Jamaica. One burnt up, set the South off, and one burnt up Jamaica, and they did mass murder on the people to get them under control. And the British had to end slavery, and the American folk went crazy with killing black folks, all kinds of stuff. Both 1831, people reading the Bible, and the Bible makes, if you believe in God, really believe, not this bullshit stuff, this TD Jakes and Jamal Bryant bullshit that most black people like, because there's lots of entertainment, and the Boule, Greek, Divine Nine, fake apostates, and Prince Hall Mason and the other Satanists, Eastern Star, have destroyed the church, or it's full of grifter, liars, semi-literate pimps and whores and predators and pedophiles. That's not the Church of God. But the real stuff that, like what Nat Turner did, that kind of stuff will make you fight and stand up to anybody. They don't want that. And I shared that. Let me remind everybody, I had this book before, my mom got sick. This book, Advice Among Masters. Advice Among Masters. I read in religion that most white masters didn't want any kind of Bible. You keep that shit. If these people start reading the Bible, they'll kill us. It says, he who the Son sets free is free indeed. You get free in God, nobody can chain your ass down. And I'm an unabashed Christian. I know how unpopular it is with fake ass black people who have gone from being sort of okay to totally fucked up since you turned your back on God and got all arrogant, and you're all worshiping yourselves, and everybody's on drugs and sagging and tattoo. We've become a nasty mob instead of the kind of people I used to see. I had a hard on when I was 5, just looking at the church women, how beautiful people used to look in the 70s. And now, didn't have all these fat people everywhere. We've lost our minds. Black people only have God. The foundation of Black American culture is true Christianity, and its enemies of fake Christianity, atheism, and paganistic religions. That's the only thing we've ever really had. And we've thrown that in the trash, and we're paying for it. But I want to say, look at that date, 1850, Fugitive Slave Act, when they were no longer able to control. Even with everybody black chained up with laws, raiding, capturing, taking free people and making them slaves, this movement from Nat Turner and all of them was undermining the whole thing. They saw the change coming. They knew it couldn't hold forever. Thomas Jefferson said in the notes of the state of Virginia or somewhere that it was holding a wolf by the ears. You can't keep people who believe in an all-powerful God enslaved, but you can get people with the fake ass, T.D. Jakes, Jamal Bryant, Creflo Dollar, Juanita Bynum, this fake ass people. That's not God. I don't care if you like it or what's his name, Kirk Franklin, fake gospel music. We don't even have good music anymore. Damn it. These people are terrified. Christianity undermined slavery in the United States and Britain. So they had to come up with something else to justify doing this to us. and their intellectual movements and all, as if they changed the goalposts when just a few black people could read, were rocking their world. So imagine they knew it was coming. They had to jump out here, right? So here we go. During the second half of the 19th century, popular atheist movements were emerging in the United States and Britain, and skepticism about the truth of Christianity was becoming widespread. Because Christianity is saying you don't have the right to enslave people. Amazing grace. I don't like that. Right? This newly embraced secularization created a paradox. How could Western civilization represent the pinnacle of human progress, as most white atheists accepted, when the majority of these societies still believed in Christianity? The result of this tension was profound ambivalence regarding the issues of racial and civilizational superiority. At times, white atheists assented to scientific racism and hierarchical conceptions of civilization. At others, they denounced racial prejudice and spoke favorably of non white and non Western civilizations. This book offers a long overdue historical analysis of the racial views of atheists and freethinkers in the United States and Britain during this time period. It provides a much needed account of the complex and sometimes contradictory ideas espoused by this transatlantic community, tracing its complex ways in which they grappled with ideas about white superiority and the role they played in early advocacy against racism and favor of human rights. Moreover, it offers insights into the social dimensions of being non-religious, exploring how working class atheist experiences of exclusion could make them sympathetic to other groups. What I want to say to you again, they bounce back and forth, but look, the same people that are atheists are the same sorts of people that got into eugenics. And it's an Anglo conspiracy against black people. In particular, blacks in America. We're in the bullseye, baby. And y'all better wake up. And you don't got nobody but God. There's not enough guns. Did you see that bitch, Anna Navarro, on CNN mad because folks are getting deported? Everybody hate us, baby. We better wake up. Better wake the hell up. Let me see. Because this is so delicious, man. I'm gonna do some of this. I'm not gonna do all of it, but I really like this. Oh, this is so hot. This is so fucking hot. It's so hot. And y'all think this stuff is separate. Y'all think this stuff is separate. Y'all need to grow up. It all goes together. Okay. Let me see if I can do some of this. If not, I'm gonna skip it. What time is it? It's 1:14. Maybe I should stop. Let me do something different because I can take a break. How many of y'all will come back tomorrow? Actually, later today, and I can do some more about this because this is a fine book. This is called The American West and the Nazi East: A Comparative and Interpretive Perspective. This is saying how the Germans pattern their mass murder of the Slavs, the Russians, the Poles, the Czechs, the Slovenes, the Bohemians, the Serbs, the Croats, the Ukrainians, the Belarusians, sort of based on what white Americans did to Indians, and including that, blacks. So let me read some of this because I'm going to stop. But challenging and provocative, this well-researched and clearly written account utilizes cutting-edge approaches to comparative genocide studies to identify what Keiko rightly calls the disquieting underlying patterns of empirical similarity in the genocidal policies and practices that flowed from the colonial ambitions of the American West and the Nazi East. The American West and the Nazi East is a unique exploration of the conceptual and historical relations between early American and Nazi German national projects of territorial expansion, racial cleansing, and settler colonization, and their respective Western and Eastern empires, along with their associated campaigns of extreme political violence against Native Indigenous people. Keiko locates early American national project in the West as a central part of the histories of imperialism, colonialism, and genocide, and offers a unique window on to the colonial origins, content, and context of the Nazi colonial project in the East, including the Holocaust. By asking new questions of supposedly familiar historical events and periods, this book brings to light the unexpected and unsettling connections between the American West and the Nazi East, and links histories previously thought totally unrelated. It is absolutely connected. Adolf Hitler was funded by Ford, was funded by them. There's a book, I have to look for it, by Anthony Sutton called Wall Street and the Nazis. Wall Street and the Nazis. Let me put this book up here so people can see it. This is going to be in the chat. I want you to have this. And I have another book on genocide, but we're in the midst of it right now. They got y'all killing babies. Abortion is murder. Abortion is murder. I don't care who doesn't like it. Abortion is murder. Uh, Eugenics is murder. All of this stuff. The Bible says if you hate your neighbor, you're a murderer. That's in the epistles of John. Okay, I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care. This is not a popularity contest. Okay, this is not a popularity contest. Y'all need to grow the hell up. Stop thinking folks are going to kiss your ass around your ignorance. Okay, I don't give a damn if you don't like it. Stop following me. There are 8 billion people on this planet, and about 3 or 4 billion, 3 billion of them are black. If I get them, that's fine. Okay, so don't ever come here and think I'm gonna bite my tongue, especially abortion is murder. It's bloody murder, sterility, eugenics, all this Nazi stuff is murder. And we're in the bullseye of it. We better start fighting. And when you got that little piece of shit pastor, tell him I said it, Jamal Bryant, he looks kind of sick. Hope he don't got nothing the way he's living. I said it. Mama died last year. He may go this year. Yeah, I said that too. You don't look good. Trying to make yourself out to be a race man. I don't know what kind of game you're running. You didn't build New Birth Church. A woman, her body. Tell a woman what to do with her body. Yeah, God gave you the body. God gave you rules. Abortion is murder. And after I've read all this stuff to you about eugenics and how they want our numbers to decrease, for anybody running around here talking about abortion like it's a nail appointment, that's a nigger out of his mind. I said it. You want to see an insane nigger? It's a stupid ass woman or man, an abortion clinic getaway driver man, and a sorry ass woman that slaughtered the baby inside of her and think that she got away. God's going to judge everybody. We need to repent. We've killed 20 million black babies. They killed maybe 10 or 20 million people in the Middle Passage in Africa. We've killed that many since 1972. Not to mention the hundreds of thousands of black people who've been wounded, shot, and killed through black on black crime. Who needs the Ku Klux Klan when you have self-hating, atheistic, godless Negroes? Damn it. How are you going to get reparations if everybody's aborted? If everybody's a trans? If everybody's on dope? If everybody's weeded out? Got enough tattoos until people can't tell what race you are? And so many different religions, nobody can connect you to a family. Come off the bullshit, people. I'm going to stop because I need to, I'm going to lay down. I got to do a funeral tomorrow. I got to sing for my favorite cousin. And I'll come back and I may do stuff earlier tomorrow. And then, of course, we're going to do salt. And I will be talking on this channel about 2 o'clock Saturday about race and Nazism in the church. And I got to talk about that sorry ass Kenneth Copeland. I never liked him. All these planes, in fact, planes are crashing. Maybe he'll be on one. Do us all a favor. I'm tired of this. I want you guys to support this channel, retweet this. We're being shadow banned. The more truth we put out here. And by the way, y'all, pray for Jaguar Wright. Folk are trying to kill her. Diddy's ass is going down. You see how sorry ass, lispy, TD Jakes, Take Dick's Jakes stepped down. Should have stepped down 50 years ago. Okay, I'm going to just say this to you. It's going to be a brave new world when this Diddy trial comes out. If there's even one video of black folks molesting white children or white women with this Shannon Sharp bullshit, we're about to go into a period of intense racial hostility in this country just in time. Hot fun in the summertime? I don't think so. We got a problem coming, people. Wake up. And the churches, all these people, what's her name? Paula White, a little used up, run through looking self. All of these people are into this. I need to remind everybody, I'm going to read some of him. This guy, William Brannon, this is the most dangerous white supremacist that has existed in the last 120 some odd years, 150 years. This dude is deadly. This guy was the mentor to Jim Jones that killed all the black people down in Guyana in the 70s. That's hundreds of dead black people. I couldn't care a damn if folks don't take me seriously. They will and can do it again. Open up your damn minds. You need to call for God for intervention because you can't get most black folks. In fact, most people can't get past busting a nut, getting up one place to shit, and having something unhealthy to eat. God help us. Now, I got to go because I'm going to take a nap and because I got to be at my best for church tomorrow. But I'm going to come back. I'm going to have Keiko. I can just tell y'all some of the books. Maybe y'all can order them. Y'all want me to do that before I go? I put Keiko up there. I'm gonna put up this guy named Collins. He's a white guy. They're okay, but they're not fully okay. You know why? They don't acknowledge that this Pentecostal stuff that they don't like. That Pentecostalism was supposed to be about black people, okay? Black and white people coming together and being against racism. And they can't admit it. There's this thing out here. It's called the New Apostolic Reformation. It's among white mystical Nazism. It's the big thing in the churches now. These people are gunning for us, and nobody will talk about it. Most Negroes want to be on their cable channels or sell books to them and won't tell anybody. That's what T.D. Jakes' sorry ass didn't do, nor his goofy ass daughter that had all those kids out of wedlock. I said that too. Mm-hmm. Or his gay ass sons aren't saying anything about it. It's time for us to get tired of it. Open your eyes. And God says he'll make your enemies your footstool, but you got to ask him to do it. And so I'm going to be talking when I get later today. We're going to be talking about white supremacy and still Nazism, religious Nazism. I'm going to show you the overlap. But I love this Keiko thing. I feel like just reading because this thing is this thing is good. You have no idea. I should read some of this. I can't put these books down. I'm going to give you a taste of this. Yeah, I'm going to have some foreplay and then a couple of minutes. This is the introduction to Keiko. In a private conversation during the Second World War, German leader Adolf Hitler frequently compared the German war for Lebensraum in the East to the colonial wars waged by the 19th century Euro-American great powers. The Slavic world, he believed, had to be conquered and colonized and its population vanquished. The completion of this colonizing mission inevitably demanded the destruction of the natives as a result of methods similar to those used in the conquest of the American West. In a monologue to his closest associates, Hitler declared, "There's only one duty, to Germanize the East by immigration of Germans and look upon the natives as redskins." He also compared the quarreling of partisan resistance in the Wild East to the struggle of North America against Red Indians. According to his understanding, American Nordics had colonized the West after they had shot down millions of Redskins to a few 100,000. Here in the East, Hitler predicted, a similar process will repeat itself for a second time as in the conquest of America. These and other scattered references have allowed numerous scholars to suggest that Hitler modeled his concept of Lebensraum and the colonial expansion in the East, as well as his treatment of indigenous Slavs and Jews, on American westward expansion and U.S. American policy. But they left out, you treat the Jews and the other people like you treat blacks. That's why you need black scholars. They couldn't go there to say, because that's basically saying we're the victims of genocide, like William L. Patterson said. You see what I'm saying? They know this. They know this is going on. You guys need to ask for intervention. Nobody in the Congressional Black Caucus looking to be a millionaire selling us out is going to open their mouth. I think they'd hardly crack their ass to do a dookie on you if you were set on fire. I'm going to check out here. This is me signing off. MFM. MFM. I haven't done that. MFM. We need our money. And we need freedom. And yes, we need God's salvation, restoration, reparation. Okay, I'm going to sign off here. You guys be good. Hold your heads up. Learn something. Think something. Check this channel out. People don't even look at the videos. I've been putting videos up here. They're like at least a good 100. Some of them are duplicates. That's because they shadow ban so heavily. Open up your mind. Read. Think. Donate. Dr. Randy Short at Venmo, Dr. Randy Short at Patreon, Dr. Randy Short, $ Dr. Randy Short, and Cash App. If you do PayPal or Zelle, it's wrandyshort@gmail.com. If you have questions about what we're reading or discussing, you can write me at wrandyshort@gmail.com. And, of course, you can donate via Zelle or PayPal. If you look, I got books everywhere. Part of this, I always wanted, was my own religion, race, and social change institute to share, write, and encourage thought because we're under attack. I appreciate people, all you moderators, El Negro Hotep, Sister Star, Sister Devon, everybody. And you can always write me. I respond to emails. Y'all be blessed. This was shorter than what I wanted. It's 3 I wanted to do, but I got to do this funeral. I want to make certain I get up. We'll pick this back up, and we're going to rock it. And my prayers, if it takes me a couple more days, but we will be talking about race, riots, Nazis, religion, goddamn feminists, police murders. I've been hoarding up material. I'll be doing different cities. May not do the whole book, but I'll be pointing you to literature. Do your own reading. Do your own research. Don't count on me. Treat me like I'm a liar. I'm just a no good, racist, bitter old dude trying to stir stuff up. Look, research, think. If you can't find something, ask. All right. I'm gone. Much love to you guys. Y'all take care. Donate, share, like, and make comments. People don't comment on this stuff. I don't know what that's about. But anyway, let me stop. Mm-mm-mm-mm.